Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another round of epic racing action in the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, as brought to you on the simulated Premier Sim Racing platform that is none other than available on PC, and that is iRacing. Goodness me, I've made a bit of a mouthful of that, haven't I? Well indeed, that's how excited I am to be here for another round of racing action ladies and gentlemen in this series, sponsored and powered by Energise Virtual Solutions, and what a venue we have made away today for round number 4. For here we are in the US of A for none other than the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta, located in the US state of Georgia near the town of Braselton. It's a circuit which arguably is more of a roller coaster ride of a circuit than it is an actual racing circuit. Albeit you can expect plenty of battling action around the course of its 2.54 mile length, but as its 12 corners weave and wind their way through the local terrain, well, the one thing that's a commonality around here is the fact that it's very hard to find an end to the flow of what is the rises and falls, and those constant undulations will keep our drivers guessing every step of the way as to exactly where the line is between going off circuit and delivering the ultimate lap. For here, our drivers will need to drive absolutely on the limit, lap after lap, corner after corner if they want to come away victorious. However, in doing so, of course, they'll be at the most prone to being mistakes when they make the way on around, and that is where the excitement will be at a circuit that's kept us guessing when it comes to who is the ultimate adrenaline chaser year after year at its impressive tarmac. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this live broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on YouTube. You can catch all this racing action on the official Race by Wire YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com and search for Race by Wire RBW, and you can be tuning in there and joining many of our spectators who tune in, week out, as we continue all of our racing action in our Premier and Maiden Series. For this is Season 1, but I'm sure there'll be plenty more to come as time goes on. And indeed, as we make our way into this round, well, let's talk a little bit about our schedule for tonight. Times in Greenwich Mean Time, that's GMT, or Universal Night Time, UTC. And as we can see, in just under 13 minutes' time, we'll be making our way into our qualifying session. 10 minutes in duration, and all our drivers looking to go for the ultimate pole lap out there, before they then make their way to the grid for the first of the 2 races this evening. Race number 1, that's going to be at 10 past 8, and that will be our 12-minute sprint race, where it's short, sweet, but also absolutely exciting, whereby there is no laps in the action whatsoever. And after that, we'll take a brief breather before returning at what will be just after 25 past 8 this evening to head to the grid once again for our second and final race. It'll be the 30-minute feature, and there's no pit stops expected, much like in the sprint race. However, of course, we do have a little bit of extra time on the cards, and therefore that just opens the race up a little bit more towards time management, fuel management, and also what is a bit more strategy when it comes to knowing when to overtake and when to stay behind or make sure just to hold track position. And here at Road Atlanta, that's going to be just as pivotal as knowing how to get the ultimate lap. And we'll tell you a little bit more about that as time goes on. In the quarantine booth, you have myself. My name is Paul Walsh, and I will bring you all your racing action as it unfolds live from Circuit Side over the entirety of the season, including today. And let's make our way then into a recap of how the season has gone so far and what is lying in wait as we head into round number 4. For as we can see, as we come into this round, we have made our way around the globe. And we started off on what was the 17th of December in the USA at the Miami International Autodrome. Following, of course, the Porsche Cup Official Series in iRacing. We've married ourselves to the calendar there to give our drivers every opportunity to practice and therefore be at their very best. But as we've left the USA, we've made our way to Brazil for Interlagos. And last time out, we were in France for the Circuit des 24 Hours du Mans. And there, the legendary endurance circuit. Well, we got to see some absolutely legendary performances from drivers. In the gold class, well, there was a missed opportunity perhaps for our championship leader of Oscar Berntsson, who won in the sprint, but it was all undermined with only a 7th place finish in the feature race. And many will be asking what exactly went wrong for the man who's been really trying to take control of the gold class championship, and it was a huge missed opportunity. But what he missed, others picked up. None more so, of course, Kim-Andre Bjørklund, who in the end picked up an absolute major haul of points, and also with it took his first win of the season in the feature race in an absolutely do-or-die battle with Richard Simnor for the win on the final lap, albeit, of course, it was a 10-car battle for the overall win in the feature race that gradually got contracted more and more down to only the 2 at the very end. But if that was the gold class and then with the excitement there on the 14th of January, what about in the silver class? Well, in the silver class, there was one name that stood at the very top. It was none other than Glenn Grondeliers. He may not have won in what was the sprint race, and instead, in terms of his result, what he took there, well, it was only a 4th place. However, some key points bagged, and in race number 2 in the feature race, he absolutely surged to the front, whereas many other drivers were losing their head and losing their cool. cool under the intense pressure, and that's how Gondoliers, once again, much like in Interlagos only the week before, he was able to make it a second win of the season. However, there's also drama further down the order, with some drivers getting into a bit of an argy-bargy with none other, and then one driver in the end taking himself out of the race when he looked to be perhaps the favourite to take both wins at Le Mans. Of course, we're talking about Mats Strand, who after the racing, on his post-race interview, said to the fact that he needs to get these mistakes ironed out, because right now it's a championship that's just slipping out of his grasp, and he is losing points to the championship leader. But as we come into this round 4 of 10, here we are on the 21st of January 2026. Understandably, our American circuit, will this be a bit of a game changer, or will we see those at the very top continue to extend their leads? Well, let's give you a cap of the championship standings then, as we come into this round. Starts off the Gold Drivers' Championship, and here what we can see is after those 3 rounds, Oscar Berntsson, the ice-cold racing powered by Maxim Racing driver, still ahead of his teammate of Mats Strand. The gap is 13 points. However, both drivers had mixed fortunes, and intriguingly enough, both in the end scoring the exact same number of points, but coming through very different circumstances to be able to achieve it, with Mats Strand, of course, having a 7th and a 4th place, so therefore he didn't get onto the podium in either race there, and indeed missing the podium for a first round of the season. But look behind and you'll see both at the best part there of what is 6 points behind him. It's Kim-Andre Bjørklund for Sim Racing Norway, ahead of Richard Simnor based on result countback. The DCW Racing Blue driver as well, impressive in France, and they have both come on strong over the last couple of rounds, and that's why right now the Ice Cold Racing team, they need to get their act together, because if not, we could see this championship blown wide open. And if it is, well, behind in 5th place is Mikey Pollard for filmbil.no Firel Sport Racing, and he'll be hoping that he can get a bit involved, but he will be bringing with him the man who's picked up 8 penalty points so far this season. However, that's not going to stop him from putting on some absolutely incredible displays. It's of course our own very much Jason Plato driver in the form of Joe Newman. He loves that accolade, and the Empire Motorsport driver, we love him too, to see him on the grid, and right now in 6th place there, he'll be going for gold today. He's 5 points ahead of Andy Jones of DCW Racing Blue, who's had a little bit of a back and forth run over the last couple of rounds. At Le Mans there's plenty of promise. He's ahead of Josh Butte for Atomic Esports, who once again definitely proved at Le Mans he's not just here to make up the numbers. However, whilst things went quite well in the sprint race, sadly they didn't quite materialise the way he wanted them to in the feature race, so he's got a bit of work to do. He's 6 points ahead of Daniel Shilcott for Tractix Racing, and then Nick Clemens completes that rather rowdy bottom end of the top 10. The RAC Sports driver is 10 points ahead of Gavin Petty, who is only ahead of Casper Tunstead based on result countback, and it's Paddy Falconer, Ryan Davies and Simon Bamber, all with points to their name. Yet score this season, we do have Andy Archer, Helder Gonzalez and Jack Atkinson. But then coming on to the silver class, how do they stand in terms of the story? Well, what we can see here, their story is much the same, whereby we do have a significant gap, if not a much bigger gap at the very top. And, well, Glenn Gondoliers, the man right now, the difference in the story compared to the gold class is he leads, but he leads by an advantage that is growing now at 22 points. And can anybody break down the consistency of this man after he did take that absolutely huge haul of points, of course, in what's round number 2 with back-to-back wins, and he's now had 3 wins in the best part of what's been 6 races. He is going some. However, Krista Halsoy, he came through on his own as well, and particularly in the feature race, put on an absolutely brilliant performance, and right now a 5th and a 2nd coming from France. He'll feel galvanised, particularly after that 10th place start in France, whereby qualifying was a disaster, but everything else the Track 6 Racing drive was a success. Adam Klamvik sits in 3rd for Ice Cold Racing powered by Maxim Racing. He is one of the big names in this silver class you've got to watch out for, because season opener at the Miami International Autodrome, it was perfection. However, after that, it has been nothing short of a nightmare. It has not worked out for Klamvik whatsoever, and therefore everyone's asking the big question, well, where exactly does he stand in all of this? But Emma Ryu joins him there on what is that 3rd spot. However, due to result count back in the penalty points, it's dropped to 4th there for ERR by the organisation, and Ryu as well will be hoping that it's not going to be another day of mixed fortunes, because of course Ryu taking that win in the sprint, only to have that contact in the end after starting to lose control coming out of an large corner. It was a very difficult one for our stewards to understand the incident, and the fact they had to go through it in multiple camera angles, and they spent a lot of time on it, the contact between Ryu and Dave Van Dam. But I do believe in the end it was considered to be a racing incident, given the fact that Ryu had already started to come a bit loose out the corner. But still, coming loose in corners is not going to compare as much as coming loose in the championship, and Ryu will not be hoping for that to happen any further. There's a further 4 points back to Ollie Pimley for Ghost Squadron Esports, who is 4 ahead of Matt Sprell. The other one you need to watch out for HRT Nexus Racing, because as we mentioned only moments ago, right now it does seem as though Sprell, for all his epic performances, he seems to be making mistakes that are holding him back when he should be right up there at the very top fighting for the prize. He's 2 points ahead of Chris Cole, who is continuing to move forward and his form is improving, ahead of Aaron Herbert for Drive Lounge Racing. They have Alan McCain and David Biggerdike completing at that top 10. Behind the DCW Racing red driver, who definitely was quite unfortunate last time out at Le Mans and has had quite a bit of frustration over the first couple of rounds due to different circumstances. Well, Berntsson sits on 11th place there. Best DRS for Yentl Drive, and he is only 3 points ahead of Nido Braun for FilmBL.no. And then we do have on 30 points Nicholas Grunstrom, head of Alexandre Longieu, who made what was quite the debut a couple of weeks ago. And right now, well, Le Mans did not reward him on home soil. He'll be hoping he can be rewarded a bit better today. Because if not, the man who made his debut last time out, and he had an absolutely brilliant post-round interview, and indeed he was an absolute star in the interview room as much as he was on track. It was none other than Dave Van Dam for GT3 Dave, who absolutely loved it out there, and we look forward to seeing what he can do today. He's in 15th ahead of Timo Gartner, and then we do have Ben Sieber, Mark Collicott, Matty Wild, and Rob Van Hout, who complete your top 20, and outside the top 20 with points to name, it's Fabrizio Penzo and Miroslav Yusupov. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's come on to our host circuit for today. And of course, we are racing at the fallout of the Road Atlanta circuit, known as the Michelin Raceway at Road Atlanta for sponsorship reasons, due to the circuit sponsorship with the Michelin tyre compound maker. But as our drivers take around this circuit near Brazelton in Hall County of the US state of Georgia, well, a big thank you to iRacing.com, not just for their brilliant simulator, but also the absolutely fantastic track mats that come with it. 12 corners. These corners, for the most part, have existed since the start of time for the circuit. The latest corners introduced to it, of course, being turns 10A and 10B, the chicane as it's nicknamed, and well, arriving in what was the late 90s due to safety concerns, because before that, if you're thinking, was it a quick run all the way from turn 7 up to what is now called turn number 11? Yes, it was. It was completely flat out, sunny to a kink, and that chicane was added in order to lower the approach speed as they made their way over the highest points of the circuit at turn number 11 to come down into the lowest points at turn number 12. But to skip to the very end of the lap is to do it a disservice, and around here, as we'll get some onboard qualifying laps, we'll see our drivers have to negotiate a whole roster and array of elevation changes that all begin at turn number 1 as they sweep the way uphill for a heavily off-camber corner, and it's to the high point of turn number 2 they have to brake for turns 3 and 4, completely blindsided. They cannot see turn 3 until they come off the brakes, and the same for turn 4 as they come down through 3. It's on the right to left very quickly, and then into the infamous S's sequence. There's no corner numbers to it. Our drivers just have to modulate the throttle and go right, left through turn number 5 before they make the way in towards the 90-degree right-handers at turns 6 and 7. Turn 6 is heavily cambered. We can expect moves on the outside just as much on the inside. Turn 7, it's as flat as they come. And as our drivers make their way out the corner, it's all about getting back to full throttle as soon as possible to blast your way down the long back straightway, all the way into the chicane of turns 10A and 10B, where we'll see the cars bottom out if they've got low ride heights, and you'll see sparks fly from the undersides as they then make the way into that braking zone. And as they emerge, it'll be over the rise of 11 and down towards 12 and flat out to go on to the next lap or to see that checker flag. In terms of our rules, let's give you a quick reminder of them. This is an open setup series where drivers picking a setup of their choosing for each and every race session on the day. In terms of qualifying, it's a closed qualifying format. That means our drivers all take to an isolated instance of the circuit in which they're able to put a best lap together, of which they have their out lap plus 4 flying laps available. And when the lap times around here are in the region of what will be 1 minute 17 for our fastest drivers, well, understandably, in those 10 minutes, they will use up those 4 flying laps very quickly. They'll be like a knife through hot butter. But as it will be definitely buttery smooth for some, when they do make the way to the grid for the first half races, well, the sprint race grid shall be set based on results of qualifying. That's a given. And when we do go to the feature race, well, we base the grid on the results of the sprint, with the top 10 finishing positions being inverted. In layman's terms, that means the winner of the sprint, they start in 10th place for the purposes of the feature, and we continue to invert that finishing order until we get to the 10th place finish in the sprint race. They start on pole for the feature, and then those who finish the length and downwards, you guessed it right, that's exactly where they start for the feature race grid. The races will commence by a standing start, as is the tradition of Porsche Cup racing, and as for potential drive-through penalties and instant points, if our drivers get to 17, they will be tasked with heading to the pit lane for a drive-through penalty, and hopefully we don't see that. But as we get ready to go racing the course, well, we look back to circuit side, and as we do, we need to give a quick shout out to our sponsor for this series, our title sponsor, of course, none other than Energise Virtual Solutions. And for those not in the know, Energise Virtual Solutions is a software consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product services and development. Where it's a completely new project, consultancy assistance, or existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. So if you'd like to know more about them, why not head to energisevirtual.com today to find out how they can help you. But a huge thank you to them for being our title sponsor this season, ladies and gentlemen. And with that, well, we look to circuit side here as our drivers head on the round. And as they do, well, we're not too far away from heading into towards our qualifying session for the day. As we look to Krista Halzoy right now, the second fastest of our silver drivers. But look who's on the fastest right now. The least in practice of the silver drivers. And, well, it's the one driver. She was definitely disappointed with the way things played out at Le Mans after the victory in the sprint. Emery right now going for one thing and one thing only, and that is to try and dominate here today. And we'll understandably all fired up for the ERR by the organisation driver. And that number 33, will we see it make it another victory? Because understandably, well, she'll want to be able to try and make it 2 from 2 today, not just one win, because the win in the sprint's good. It's worth some points, but it's nowhere near worth as many points as in the feature race, and that's definitely becoming a big theme. Those who seem to do well in the sprint sometimes struggle in the feature races, and vice versa. And well, the consistency is critical to a championship crown. But as Ryu makes her way in towards turn number 6, meanwhile in the pit lane we do have Kim-Andre Bjørklund, and right now he is currently the fastest in practice here with the gold drivers, but the man who's behind him on the time tower is the man who's in front of him in the pit lane. You thought we were going to say the man who's behind him in the pit lane, because it was quite a similar livery. Not quite so, because here is the second place man in practice, but the man who's leading the gold championship of Oscar Berntsson. And well, right now these two could not be closer. 700ths is the delta between the two of them, and understandably they will be both pushing each other every step of the way today. But as all the drivers get themselves set, qualifying is around the corner. We leave practice alone, ladies and gentlemen, because practice is done. It is time to head into qualifying, and who will put it on pole? Let's find out. So here we go, ladies and gentlemen. Qualifying gets underway. 10 minutes, an outlap plus 4 flying laps. You could not ask for a more tense situation here. And indeed, for drivers, they'll be used to this format now. They've had to do it for the best part of 3 rounds thus far. However, at this circuit, it's a little bit different because, of course, the risk versus reward here at Road Atlanta is so high. As we see Glenn Gondoliers make his way out of the pit lane. And as he does, while Silver Championship leader right now, he knows what it's like to be under a lot of pressure. He has felt the pressure so far this season, particularly at Interlagos, where he picked up those back-to-back wins, where everyone else was caught up in the madness in the opening few corners. Well, meanwhile, the Pegasus Sim Racing driver was able to squeeze his way through, and the Belgian team right now absolutely pleased with how the 99 driver's doing, and hopefully they'll see even more of that today. We do say hello in the YouTube chat there to none other than Nick DeBeck, who says this is the best combo ahead, and indeed, I agree with you on that, Nick. I'm not allowed to technically have favourites, but when you say Porsche Cup cars, Road Atlanta, and 2 very quick-fire races, you could not ask for anything more that's going to get the blood absolutely pumping here in the commentator booth. And well, I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I've got plenty of water alongside me, so that way my vocal cords do not end up drying up too quickly. Just cognizant of that. We're not expecting any rain here. It's going to be a dry day at Road Atlanta. It's the perfect conditions here for us to go racing. Not too high a track temperature either. Can we get the weather up here on screen? We can. There we go. 24 degrees track temperature at the moment. That's centigrade, or C, 90 degrees ambient temperature. And we are at almost 1 o'clock in sim racing time. Therefore, this circuit is definitely going to be in a good state when we head into the races. And indeed, there's going to be plenty of grip available here once the drivers have got their tyres up to temperature. Now, we won't immediately get an on-board lap with our drivers straight away because they will need the best part of their first flying lap to try and get their tyres into the space they want them to be. But of course, what's the importance to qualifying here? How important is it to put yourself on pole? Now, some would say it's not too important. Others would say it's absolutely critical. The theme of Road Atlanta is that this is one of those circuits whereby after the opening 2 to 3 corners, if you survive them, of course, given the fact they taper very quickly from a very wide open road surface, where turn 1 you can go 4 wide if you want to, even in these machines, you very quickly find that by the time you come through turn number 3, which Nick Clemens on camera does so there, the right-hander that drops down into the left-hander of turn number 4, and now he's into the S's that come after it, you need to have formed into a line formation there, as he gets it slightly wrong, but gathers it back together just about. But the importance of it means that qualifying wise, if you want to be right at the front, then you've got to go all in. If you want to be towards the front, you can make up places, because as you get towards turns 6 and 7, which we're now seeing Clemens make his way into, the circuit widens up in terms of the racing lines, and then on this back stretch, this is where you can absolutely go for gold when it comes to moves. However, everyone will know that. Everyone will know by the time you get to the end of this back stretch, you're all hard on the brakes in towards the turn 10 chicane. So therefore, it's up to you as a driver. Do you feel confident that you can battle in the limited battling zones on the circuit for places, or do you think to yourself, otherwise that actually you're not confident, everyone knows what you're trying to do, everyone knows what each other's trying to do, and do you need to take track position? That is the big question mark. So that's why we can't say qualifying's vital, but we can't say it's insignificant either. It really comes down to the driver and their abilities here, and of course lastly how willing they are to deliver lap after lap around here. Absolutely driving to the limit. Those white lines, they're there for a reason here at Road Atlanta. You need to be as close as possible to them every corner if you want to max out your lap time. But as we say hello there to Afiatu, who is cheering on Nido Braun today. Here is Nido right now, and good afternoon to you, sir or madam. I hope you're doing well, and we'll look to the film BIL.NO car as Braun right now makes his way on through. He's currently down in 19th place, but I can imagine he's building up to something tasty this next lap around. Then speaking of tasty laps coming up, Ollie Pimley's getting ready to go on to what will be his first line lap, so he makes his way on through, and well, right now he has come across that time in line, and as he does so, well, in fact that's his first line lap on the board. He's on to lap number 2 at 19.600. Puts him right in the middle of our initial field here of those who've got lap times, but what about those who have not? Are there any big surprises right now? Perhaps the biggest one of them all is Mats Strand. His first lap was invalidated due to a track limit infringement, and well, bouncing over the curbs there, and our drivers have found with these new Porsche 9 and 2.2 Cup cars, they are very sensitive to curbs. The suspension seems to essentially bounce over high curbing, whereas the older car did not, so they're having to get used to the fact they cannot abuse the curves as much as they used to, and that's proving to be challenging for some. But meanwhile, we come to the man from Norway who's always a joy to chat to and he's a joy to ride on board with. Let's get on board with Chris Halzoy as he takes us around for a flying lap. Staying across that timeline then, up to 12th, can he go even quicker? We're into turn 1, onto the brakes, down to 4th gear, and now flat out up the hill here, burying the car into the road as he makes his way over the rise. And at the peak, he goes onto the brakes there for turn number 3, through 2, down into 3, and in 3rd gear, he now goes into 4th. That's both the corner and the gear as he now makes his way down into the S's here, right, left, right, and as he does, pitching the car back and forth, straight line in the final part of the S's to break his way in towards turn number 5 as the car bounces around there. My good lord, you would think that he's on some kind of seesaw as he makes his way out towards turn number 6, but now the car settles down onto the brakes nice and late there, about 75 minutes of corner apex, down to 3rd gear, trailing off the brakes, then back on as he comes through turn 7. There avoids the apex curve, lets the car roll a little bit deep. That's intentional to avoid lifting up the front right tyre and therefore upsetting the weight transfer of the car, and now onto the back straight he goes. It has been a very aggressive opening after the lap from Halzoy, but understandably here because he's got to go all in. Now we briefly lose him and he rematerialises from the proverbial ether, thank goodness for that, and as he comes all the way down now towards the S's chicane, it turns 10A and 10B, onto the brakes there, all the way down from 6th to 2nd. And all the way down for an excess of 160 miles an hour, exits the corner, and now over the rise of turn 11, leaves the car out to the outside, opens up turn 12, completely flat out through here. And for Halzoy, has it been an improvement? The answer is going to be, I think it has, but how much? He puts himself 10th now. He puts himself 3rd fastest in the silver class, but he's still got another lap available to him. All the drivers are improving lap after lap. In fact, that's the full fastest in silver, as my eyes do deceive me. Adam Klanvik is just ahead of him, and then you've got Spur up in 5th, and Ryu right now in 2nd. Well, goodness me, the margins could not be more marginal than this as they head on through, and as they all make the way on around. Still, who is perhaps struggling a little bit in this qualifying session out of the big names? Well, one of the names that we are a little bit shocked at is Glenn Grondeliers, all the way down in 15th place. But then again, is it fair to say that? Because look at the gaps between drivers. If you exclude, well, I was about to say if you exclude the top 2, but actually you can put 2nd into the equation now, from Ryu all the way down to Grondeliers in 15th place. That is not even 5/10 of a second at the moment separating all these drivers. That's how close it is here. It is not the shortest lap on the calendar, but it is the lap where everybody knows every thousandth matters. And as Grondeliers comes through the final quarter, well, this has not been an improving lap. He crosses that time line. What's it going to be for Grondeliers? The answer is it's an 18.667. It's probably not enough to get inside the top 10. It's not. It's 12th. So Grondeliers right now will be starting outside the top 10 here today at the least. Meanwhile, Adam Klanvik cross line. He improves to an 18.579. But that's only good for 7th. In fact, that's now 8th as Cole improves. Chris Cole jumps up again, and Krista Halzoy leaps into 6th place off camera. They're all finding time out there as Kim-Andre Bjørklund goes 3rd. He's completed his session. Here's Mats Strand making his way onwards. He's on his very last lap here. With 3 minutes left on the clock, he's going to get all these laps in. They all are, but right now, well, my goodness, it does seem as though everyone's finding a bit of time. Aaron Herbert comes from the very bottom of the field to 19th place. He left that late. He put an ace up his sleeve there and hit it well on the poker table. And meanwhile, Mark Collicott here for DCW Racing Red, well, he makes his way out to turn number 5. And right now, he's 12th for the Silvers or 24th overall. But what about Strand? He's just crossed the timeline, looking at my contact booth window, and Strand has not improved. So 5th will be the place he starts today, just ahead of Krista Halzoy. But Ryu seems to be the silver lining in terms of the pole sitters. And then it's Oscar Berntsson who's the one who's just pipped Ryu by almost 3/10. And Berntsson, well, after what was the disappointment of Le Mans, I think right now Oscar Bernsson's taken the accolade that he needs to make sure he's at the very front every single qualifying session. I don't blame him, to be fair. If he's going to have to grind out this championship by just simply taking it on pole positions and sprint races and recovery drives in the feature race, he's definitely making a name for himself in that already. And that's not to be rude about him. It's definitely to his reputation. But meanwhile, as we do continue to look at Mark Collicott, he comes around. He is the last driver on what is a valid lap. He comes on across the line. And for Collicott, it is going to be 21st in the end. He improves to 10th in silver and a 19.051. But goodness me, the margins between the drivers here have been absolutely exceptional. It has been the closest qualifying session of the season so far. There has been nothing in it. And when you consider, as we wait for the timer to now tick down, given the fact that everyone's complete on qualifying, when you consider from second all the way through to 23rd place, yes, you heard that right, 22 drivers are separated by a second. That is the tightest you are going to see it this season, I reckon, ladies and gentlemen, and at a circuit which takes no prisoners when you get it wrong. That is incredible here. Unfortunately, you can only have so many drivers inside that top 10. We would love to see everybody who was able to get within that margin within the top 10, but they can't be. But it's an incredibly tight qualifying session, no doubt about it. And right now, I can imagine it is going to be just as tight in the race. But as we do say hello there to Alex Saunders and also Adam Roche, who say, let's go Cropper. And well, I do believe that's a nickname potentially for one of our drivers here, because that always seems to confuse me. Perhaps they can enlighten me a little bit. I wonder if that's Matt Sparrell they're perhaps referring to, as we do see Adam Roche saying, come on, Matt Sparrell. And well, Sparrell right now is, in terms of his qualifying performance, well, he looked quite strong, but in the end, he's had to settle for 11th place in the qualifying session. He won't be too upset about that, as Jack Atkinson, in the end, he's made it 22nd place. I do believe this is the first time we're seeing Jack Atkinson in anger in a qualifying session, which is great to see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, qualifying is complete. It's time to head to the grid for the first of our two races here at Road Atlanta. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for the first of our two races today in round 4 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup Season 1, brought to you in partnership with Energise Virtual Solutions. Oscar Berntsson takes pole position for Ice Cold Racing powered by Max Sim Racing, and join him on the front row from the gold pole sitter, it's to the silver pole sitter, the Italian of Emma Ryu. The ER by the organisation driver there, doing well to put it on pole once again, ahead of Kim Andre Bjørklund, who starts third, second of the gold. He lines up on row 2 for Sim Racing Norway in the company of DCW Racing Blues Andy Jones, who takes his best qualifying performance of the season. Then we have 5th on the grid, Mats Strand for Ice Cold Racing powered by Max Sim Racing, ahead of 2nd place silver starter Krista Halsoy, who's 6th for Tractix Racing. Then it's Mikey Pollard in 7th for Film BIL.NO for L Sport Racing. He has his best qualifying performance ahead of Josh Boot for Atomic Esports. Then it will be completing the top 10. Chris Cole, the privateer, ahead of Ice Cold Racing's Adam Klanvik. Outside the top 10, in 11th, it's Matt Sparrell for HRT Nexus Racing, ahead of Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations. And then we do have Pegasus Sim Racing or Glenn Gondoliers in 13th place, ahead of Nick Clibbins for iRace Esports. 15th on the grid is Patrick Falconer for DCW Racing Blue, ahead of Daniel Shilcott for Tractix Racing, with Richard Simnor of a poor qualifying session by comparison with last round. The DCW Racing Blue driver could only manage 17th. He'll be joined on that 9th row of the grid by none other than Ollie Pimley, and completing the top 20, it's Aaron Herbert for Drive Lounge Racing and DCW Racing Red's David Biggerdike. Outside the top 20 then, we do have Mark Collicott, 21st for DCW Racing Red, ahead of Race by Wire's Jack Atkinson, with Alexandra Longju starting at 23rd for BB1 Sim Racing, ahead of Matty Wild for DCW Racing Yellow. And then it'll be Rob Van Hoot, the privateer, ahead of Film BIL's Nido Braun, with Ritzio Penzo, the privateer, and Yentl Drives Burton Torfs on the penultimate row. And then Alan McCain and Ben Sieber complete your 30 drivers. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, the lights are going on for the first time today. It's going to be 1, it's 2, it's 3, it's 4, it's 5. And it's lights out, and away we go for 12 minutes of race there as our drivers charge away. And Oscar Berntsson gets a good start as Kim Andre Bjørklund immediately looks to the inside there versus Ryu. Ryu cuts back across. Very quick move there for Ryu to cover off Matt Strand. And will in the end they survive it as we will car sideways there. I think that's Krista Halsoy being ejected out, but we'll try and understand what's happened. Mikey Pollard, I think, has taken a trip with him at turn number 1. We stay transfixed on all the madness that will now make its way over the cliff of turn number 2. But as they come down, well, a little bit of grass there being touched by Nick Clibbins, but otherwise they are all safely through. Minus our 2 drives further back as Fabrizio Penzo tries to make some move, and he makes his way onto the inside there. Burton towards into the S's, but has to back out 9. There's no room available for him. So it has been an aggressive start from all the drivers, but bar 2 drivers who've both immediately gone to the pit lane. Everyone is safely through. But now as they come down, well, meanwhile, your leader of Oscar Berntsson, He's already starting to pull away from Bjørklund as Energise right now dropping the third, but the silver pole sitter is holding on to the lead of the class. That's what matters most. But behind in silver, well, already at the bottom end of the top 10, it's 4 silver drivers who make up 7th through to 10th of Cole, Spirell, Klamvik and Gondoliers, and they are all looking at each other right now. I think thinking, are they going to fight each other? Well, Spirell says yes, he is. He looks up the inside of Cole. Spirell's had a lightning quick start. He's already up 2 places. He's now going to go for a third here in class. He moves into 2nd of the silvers, into 7th there. Classic move up the inside into the chicane. And well, he takes that with smooth ease. But right now, of course, there's a bit more time in this race. It's not over yet. He's done one of many a lap as they make their way on to lap number 2. As they do, Andy Jones under pressure here from Josh Boot, and in the end, Boot's going to look for the move. Can he make it count? No, he can't. Jones goes deep. Meanwhile, that's going to be Spirell. Spirell gets it all wrong at turn number 1, and the HRT driver in the end, well, he goes so wide, he breaks his way back on, but he loses all that ground early on. There's some contact there between himself and Aaron Herbert. So in the end, Spirell right now gives himself the elbow at turn number 1 and then gets the elbow from Herbert at turn number 3. For what is Matt Spirell? You couldn't make this up right now. And indeed, we said earlier about the fact the mistakes that creep in, they just upset all the momentum he makes. And there's another example, ladies and gentlemen. But still, don't roll him out. He's going to go for everything from this point onwards. And understandably, there'll be many wishing him on. But meanwhile, Patrick Falconer, well, he's got Richard Simnor close behind. And Simnor has made up 5 places since the start of the race. He's had a good start, Simnor. And then Herbert right behind him. However, Herbert right now in the Duckham's livery machine for Drive Lounge Racing. He's looking one way then the other, and I wonder here where Simnor's going to go full defensive here, coming all the way down the back straight. As I think their Falconer is trying to give him a little bit of a distant toe there to help him out, the 2 teammates. But in the end, I don't think it's going to be enough. And in fact, Herbert's going to look around the outside here. So Aaron Herbert right now, he wants that 10th place finish. He wants to be on pole for race number 2. But right now, Richard Simnor's saying to him, no, you cannot. And as they make the way towards the end of this lap, there's going to be more fighting between them before this is done. Meanwhile, towards the very back of the field, there's fighting everywhere you look. And here we can see Ben Sieber right now trying to chase after Alan McCain and Nido Braun, who do battle for 11 into 12. McCain on the inside there in the Recti machine. He makes that move stick as Sieber. Meanwhile, we might be the last of the runners right now, but he's not out of contention for some good fun here. Indeed, everywhere you look, there's battling going on as this is too wide up the hill between Rob Van Hoot and Wes Burton Torves. And in the end, Van Hoot gets past his fellow countrymen as they make the way down the hill now. And well, Van Hoot making a classic move, as we did also see McCain and Braun getting back together in the rear of the picture, but McCain has held off the change from the number 7 of Nido Braun, at least for now. And as these drivers weave and wind the way towards the next big apex, from them we come back to the top 10. And here is Andy Jones right now with Energise behind. Jones has found his way ahead previously, and Energise has now fallen back into the clutches of the rest of the silver sitters inside that top 10. And in fact, we can see Ryu, Cole and Klamvik, they are separated by only 9/10 as a group of 3. And then you do have Simon Bamber, the gold driver, who just upsets the balance a little bit of all those silvers. And well, Bamber right now looking for an opportunity versus Klamvik here, the effect simulation driver going up the inside. And well, Bamber, he's not going to pull any punches in when he goes for it. We saw that at Le Mans, of course, with what was an absolutely brilliant set of battles between himself and his gold peers, which ended up in disaster just before Indianapolis on the penultimate lap where the car went into the air. But still, he's back here once again today, no injury sustained. And well, it's a bit of a run wide there from Andy Jones in the foreground of the camera shot. Everyone is definitely settling in, but my goodness, what a set of battles we've got on our hands, ladies and gentlemen. But we need to take a look back at what happened at the start of the race as we take a look back at what happened to Daniel Shilcock and Mikey Pollard. Now, they were towards the front of the field, and as we went green flag racing, there was a jump start there for a car behind. That was, I believe, the 190 car getting a jump start. But meanwhile, the rest of the field made its way off into the distance, and as they did, well, Shilcock and what's Pollard, oh, goodness me, and in the end, well, a little bit of contact there, and that was Mikey Pollard in contact with another driver, and unfortunately for Daniel Shilcock, he just happened to be in the right place at the wrong time to be collected with him. So that explains their story as we make our way back to your live pictures, ladies and gentlemen. We just wait to catch that. There's still plenty more fights to go on, and we're not going to leave anything behind at the moment. Although saying that, I think there has been a huge incident for Glenn Gondoliers, Chris Cole and Fabrizio Penzo. We might have to go back in time for that, as there's a car parked up there. Oh, there's a bit of elbows out between Ben Sieber and none other than Nido Braun. Well, not Nido Braun, that's Burton Torves who was sent wide, and in the end Braun will pick up the places there. But I think things are getting a little bit rowdy between all the drivers now, and I can tell you one thing, Cole and Penzo, their cars are definitely being repaired in the pit lane. They've got a lot of damage on them as I look at my Conte booth window, so therefore there is a story there, and we will try and get the feed on it when we can as we come towards the halfway point of the race. But my goodness, as this goes on, right now this is the race that keeps on giving, and we did cut away from it. We do apologise for that, but Simon Bamber did find his way past Adam Klamvik on the exit of turn number 1. He has made the move into 7th place, and now he's going to be chasing down Emeriu. But we are starting to see the gold drivers who qualified towards the bottom end of the top 10 or outside of it. They are picking their way into the silvers in front of them, and Mats Strand had that monster start, of course, but unfortunately that's a mistake. You see him here stuck behind Richard Simnor at the moment. That mistake at turn 1 on lap number 2 has cost him all that early momentum, but if he can find a way ahead of Simnor and then Aaron Herbert, he will yield himself what will be pole position for race number 2, and that will be a reward in itself. As we can see, Patrick Falconer battling here with Aaron Herbert right now. It doesn't matter what class these two are in, they are fighting each other as if they're in the same class. And we'll do keep in mind, of course, if you're uninitiated to this series, battling for position across classes for overall position isn't worth anything in itself. It's not worth any points here, in the fact that right now you are only scored based on where you finish compared to your peers in your class. So you could be a silver winner overall, or you could win the silver class from 10th place. Wouldn't make a difference, and that's the full process here that our drivers have to balance. But Simnor going defensive versus Brell, who's definitely trying to get the better of him right now as they bounce away towards the end of the lap. And well, there won't be too many more laps. The new fastest lap of the race goes to your leader of Oscar Berntsson, who is controlling the narrative up front by 1.2 seconds over Kim Andre Bjørklund. But Bjørklund is staying right with him, as meanwhile we can see Josh Butte here in the Jim Beam machine. He's under pressure for Atomic Esports from Andy Jones as they make the way down the hill. But both cars out up onto 2 wheels for a brief moment, and that shows you how hard and how confident they now are feeling with regards to how they can push on this circuit. And as they roar their way through turn number 5, right now the number 69 driver here is all looking nice as he powers his way up towards the next braking zone. And Jones falling back for EDSs, that's to be expected there. It's one of the sequence of corners where the dirty air is most pronounced. And whilst these Porsche Cup cars don't really have too much aero to speak of beyond the massive rear wing on the rear, you can understand the fact that dirty air does invoke some understeer and upsets the aero balance of a car that leans very much towards the rear in terms of weight distribution, and also what is the aero balance of the car with that rear wing. But back in the silver class, Alexandre Longieu battling with Mark Collicott. Collicott, of course, having a bit of an early escapade and has been trying to move forward ever since. And that journey for Mark Collicott is getting better and better in number 77. But Longieu does want to say something about it. The Frenchman versus the Briton now as they make their way down towards that braking zone. And the answer is going to be they stay stationary for now. No change between them. How I think this might be calm before the storm. But speaking of the storm, we did have a bit of storm kicked up earlier on, and this was an incident for none other than Fabrizio Penzo on lap number 4. Now, that was Penzo already in the wall, so he'd already made his way to the barrier. Can we get an earlier replay? Yes, we can. This explains it. So on the start-finish straight here, Penzo in the middle of the road, contact with, what was there, the 247, and, well, that's Krista Halsaway came to contact with them. Both drivers in the end coming off worse aware, and, well, Penzo just being turns there. So a bit of an odd one, that. Not sure if you would argue that Halsaway cut into Penzo's line, or whether Penzo came across and cut off Krista Halsaway's nose, but either way, it's gone a little bit wrong for them both. Wow, what's going right now, as long as you're still attacking Collicott, as they make the way on towards what will be turn number 6 once again. Just in front of them, Aaron Herbert up the inside of Patrick Falconer this time. This is for 9th place, but look at what this battling is doing. It's bringing the field behind much closer to them as Mats Strand and Richard Simnor swap places since we last looked. So right now, Strand and Simnor, they are definitely getting very firm with each other, but it's Falconer here who is under the pressure because he needs to hold on to this 10th place or go further forwards. If he doesn't, he may be relegated outside the inverted grid for race number 2, and that's going to hurt him in the fact he won't want to be starting on the 6th row. He'll want to start on the front row if he can. But Strand right now still battling there with Simnor. Simnor dives up the inside. The silver drive right now, make sure to return it in kind, coming out 10B. There's Elwood's betrayed us as a bounce of the car, and Simnor in the end has to back off without hitting the wall. He just about avoids it, but Simnor loses out to Clemens, to Atkinson. They all come through, and with 2.5 minutes left, there's going to be another 2 laps at least here. But right now for Richard Simnor, he's going to remember that one going into the next race. I wouldn't be surprised if his elbows become a little bit wider when he sees Sprell in the feature race, if he doesn't see him again in this sprint race. Well, we will see. Not that he bears a grudge or anything, but in this one, well, I can tell you one thing so far this season, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen a lot of rivalries build up between specific drivers, and they have got to the point of almost becoming touring car-esque rivalries. And, well, the stewards have had to calm a few drivers down in the round so far. However, the racing has been absolutely excellent. That's what we want to see, and we'll see more of it here as Strand and Andy Jones fight each other through turn 6 into 7. Strand's up the inside, and in the end, well, Strand, I should say, is up the inside. That was Strones, I said there, a mixture of the two names. That's how close they are to each other, though. You could merge them together as they make their way down the back straight. Strand up into 4th place. He's finally found his way through, but of course now there's just the one big problem of the best part of a 3/4 mile hour long straight. where they're going to be making their way all the way down towards that braking zone for turn number 10. And what we can see is Strand here going as defensive as possible, but Jones trying to scoop around the outside. Rear of picture. Ryu going defensive there versus what is Klamvik. Bamba overcooks the braking zone, and Ryu gets ahead, but puts himself back ahead of what is Klamvik does Bamba. So therefore, Bamba right now putting himself between the two silver leaders, and well, he could interrupt the battle. We are on to lap number 9. Are we going to get a 10th lap? Yes, we are, ladies and gentlemen. We've just had confirmation we will get an extra lap, and we've got the question mark, what exactly has happened to Glenn Gondoliers? And the answer is we don't 100% know, but this may help explain things as we take a quick look back in time. So this was Gondoliers at the time on lap 4, going up the hill in towards turn number 2 by himself. Under braking, however, hit the curb. Car in front of him right now. It's Chris Cole going loose, and Gondoliers just happened to be in the wrong place at the right time to be collected with it, and there was contact to the rear of the car. Not quite sure who that was. Was that Sproul who tapped on the rear? Don't confirm me on that one, ladies and gentlemen, because that's just a quick guess, but Gondoliers' race quickly went from good and solid to what was crumbling into pieces. Well, that explains what happened to Glenn, sadly, and well, hopefully we'll see him back on the grid for race number 2, although to be fair, he's going to be all the way at the back of the field. He's going to fight his way through. But as we come back to your live pictures, well, right now we won't leave these for the remainder of the race because, of course, we don't want to miss the final lap action. We're on that penultimate lap as we do see Jones and Strand going at it once again. Strand on the inside on the right of your picture. Meanwhile, Jones on the left, and Jones outside to inside. They both ride each other ragged in terms of room. And Jones gets ahead for now, but Strand will try and come back. Bamba has got back ahead of Emma Ryu in the rear of the picture. So Ryu now back to 7th place, but still silver leader behind the Gold Effect Simulations car. And Adam Klamvik is there waiting to pounce. But look back to Sproul. He's up into 10th place and now found his way ahead of Richard Simnor right now. Well, here comes Patrick Falconer looking up the inside. Falconer wants 10th place. They all want 10th place over Sproul, and Sproul right now is putting his stake in the ground and saying to him, come if you dare, I'm taking this one whether you like it or not. And here goes Nick Clearage looking around the outside. He can't quite make it. He's going to be squeezed out the apex in turn number 4, and Falconer in the end holds on for dear life for 11th place, but this might buy Sproul time as they all wind their way through the S's. And at the back of this group is Mark Collicott. There is no Big Light, and then Collicott's right behind him. They're all pushing each other onwards. It's going to be a huge fight here, but this might buy Sproul the time he needs to break away, because you can see him, he's starting to move off into the distance. Meanwhile, as these drivers all make their way through, they're all gold drivers right now with 2 silvers at the back of their group. Well, meanwhile, we do come back to Oscar Berntsson. He's got Kim-Andre Bjørklund behind. He looks to be in control as meanwhile, well, that's a mistake coming out to turn number 7 there for Emery Hughes, dropping down the order. Klamvik and Herbert have found their way on past, but we have to leave them behind because as he comes through the final quarter, well, for Oscar Berntsson, it's been pole to victory. What a drive from the Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing driver. He's your winner in race 1 ahead of Kim-Andre Bjørklund, who kept him honest, and then Josh Boot will come on home in 3rd place for Atomic Esports then, a lonely 3rd, but he'll be proud of that. Matt Strand in the end does get 4th, the upper hand of Andy Jones is 5th, and then Simon Bamb will come home 6th for the gold drivers. And that's also overall before you do get to your silver winner of Adam Klamvik, who took the lead of the silver class, coming out to turn 7 with Aaron Herbert squeezing his way through as well. And Matt Sproul in the end rounding off the silver podium ahead of Patrick Falconer, who took 10th place in the end. Emma Ryu has dropped down the order like a stone. I'm not quite sure what's happened to her. I wonder if she's run out of fuel on the final lap. Whether there was the expectation this would only be a 9-lap race on Ryu, as more drivers are coming on through. And Alan McCann comes across the line in 20th place there in the Rexy machine. That's definitely been a bit bruised in this one. Glenn Gondoliers has still got some time to go. Ryu has come across the finish line in 22nd, I can confirm. And it was Gondoliers makes his way on down. Right now, this is for the drivers who are remaining, who had a bit of a difficult day in the office in race number 1. Gondoliers, of course, caught up in that lap number 4 instant, down through turns 2, 3 and 4, being collected with the car of Chris Cole, who got it wrong, whether of his own volition or had been made to get it wrong, we don't know, but we saw the aftermath, and Gondoliers, unfortunately, coming into that scene of the instant and not able to respond. But he finishes 15th in class, 25th overall, and Fabrizio Penzo, in the meanwhile, he got the car back out on circuit. Good on him to do so. He'll be your 27th finish of that, and the last driver to finish this race as classified. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, what a race number 1 it has been. And as quickly as that, we now head into the warm-up phase in preparation for race number 2. And that's good, of course. That gives us time to give you a recap of the race results from today's sprint race. So as the results appear on screen, here they are. And as we can see, after an absolutely fast, frantic and frenetic 12 minutes of racing in our heat for what was round number 4 of Season 1 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, sponsored by Energise Virtual Solutions on iRacing, Oscar Berntsson taking victory there for Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing by almost a second in over Kim-Andre Bjørklund, and the Sim Racing Norway driver in the end keeping Berntsson honest, but Berntsson just having the edge over the race distance. Josh Boot took 3rd place for Atomic Esports, couldn't quite keep up with the top 2, but was able to to make that third place his own after making his way past Emeriu in the early stages, with Mats Strand at fourth there for Ice Cold Racing, powered by Max Sim Racing, having to fight incredibly hard for that fourth place with Andy Jones, who he just pipped to the post, the Welshman finishing fifth for DCW Racing Blue. It was then a further second to Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations, who managed to get ahead of all his silver peers, and in the end Adam Klamvik would take 7th place, but with it, the silver win. Albeit it looked as though it was going the way of Ryu until literally the exit of turn number 7, and there's definitely a story to that, no doubt about it. But the 174 driver Ice Cold Racing, powered by Max Sim Racing, finally returns to the top step of the podium, ahead of Aaron Herbert, who was 8th runner-up in the silver class, and the Drive Lounge Racing Trial. What a fight through from him, coming all the way through from outside that top 10, and in the end, brazenly making his way to 8th and being rewarded with a 2nd place in class. Matt Swerrell as well, he'll be kicking himself for the instant he made of his own race at what was turn number 1 on lap number 2 when he was leading the class. It all went to the grass, but the HRT Nexus Racing Drive did an incredible job of recovering to that 3rd in 9th, battling hard with Richard Simnor and many other gold driver, and Patrick Falconer was the man who rounded off the top 10 there for DCW Racing Blue, and he will be your pole sitter for race number 2. Nick Clemens was best the rest of the length for Irish Esports ahead of Richard Simnor, with Jack Atkinson 13th for race by wire ahead of Ollie Pimley, and there was David Biggerdike, Mark Collicott, Rob Van Hoot, Matty Wild, Krista Houseway and Alan McCain, who completed that top 20. But that was a recap of the top 20 finishing positions, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to pause it there, because it's time for us to make our way to the grid then for race number 2, the 30-minute feature. And as our drivers make the way onto the grid once again, this is how they line up. On pole position, thanks to the top 10 inversion of the sprint race results, it is Patrick Falconer, the DCW Racing Blue driver, ahead of Matt Sproul, the silver pole sitter for HRT Nexus Racing. It'll then be Aaron Herbert for Drive Lounge Racing, who starts in 3rd, ahead of Ice Cold Racing's Adam Klamvik. And then behind them on the 3rd row of the grid, it'll be Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations, ahead of Andy Jones. The DCW Racing Blue Drive will be followed up by Matt Strand for Ice Cold Racing, with Josh Boot from Atomic Esports in 8th. And then completing that top 10 will be Kim Andre Bjørklund for Sim Racing Norway and Oscar Berntsson for Ice Cold Racing. Outside the top 10, it's Nick Clemens ahead of Richard Simnor, with Jack Atkinson and Ollie Pimley on row 7. Row 8, it's David Biggerdike and Mark Collicott ahead of Rob Van Hoot and Matty Wild, and Krista Houseway and Alan McCain complete your top 20. Outside that top 20, it's Nido Braun ahead of Emeriu, with Burton Torse and Ben Siebert on row 12 ahead of Glenn Grondeliers and Chris Cole. Fabrizio Penza and Alexandra Longju are there, and Mikey Pollard and Daniel Shilcock complete the starting order. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, here come the lights once again, as quick as that, and with 5 red lights, it's lights down, away we go for the 2nd time today, as all 30-odd drivers get their stories underway. And as they roar the way down towards turn number 1, well, Matt Sproul gets the better launch of the front row. But now it's going to be to the inside that Patrick Falconer looks to dive, but he can't make it work as they come up the hill. And as they roar the way onwards, well, right now, Matt Sproul, where is Sproul? He's dropped all the way down. I think he's had a bit of a moment of Sproul. And, well, he's dropped all the way from what was 2nd place in the lead almost, now all the way down to 9th place. You couldn't make it up for Matt Sproul. He's making a complete mountain out of an anthill here by looks of things. He had a slight off track and it's all gone wrong. We'll get a replay of that when we can, but Sproul falls backwards and Falconer retakes the lead, and Aaron Herbert now is your silver leader as Adam Klamvik has come through with it. It's been a very quick shuffle here in amongst the silvers, and meanwhile everybody else is safely through the opening corners, and we see Emeriu immediately trying to look for a mission of a charge here, trying to chase after Alan McCain. I wonder how many battles are going to kick off on this open lap as we see a bit of a run wide of Burton Torves. He gets it back together or thereabouts, but he does let Chris Houseway on through as we've got, oh, that's a spin for David Biggerdike coming out to turn number 7, and well, there's been some contact to the front of the car. The front bumper falls off of the number 13, and well, unlucky for some, and definitely it's been a bit of a misfortunate day today for the DCW Racing driver. But meanwhile, at the front of the field, Aaron Herbert looking up the inside of Patrick Falconer takes the lead into the chicane, and everyone queues up behind now as they make the way on around to complete the opening lap. But there's going to be plenty more of these, ladies and gentlemen. Let me assure you of that right now. And we'll 30 minutes of race, and if we got the best part of 10 laps in our 12-minute race, when you do the quick mathematics, you're looking at the best part of what will be about 24 laps in this one, if not more. But right now, Aaron Herbert leads in after 1 lap, and Patrick Falconer right behind him. Then it's Simon Bamber who's in 3rd, ahead of Adam Klamvik, followed by Matt Strand. Then it's Josh Boot, who sits in 6th place, ahead of Kim Andre Bjørklund. Then with Matt Sproul, Andy Jones and Oscar Berntsson completing that top 10, with Richard Simnor in 11th place. Meanwhile, best of the rest, ahead of Nick Clemens and Jack Atkinson. And then we have the rest of the Silverfield headed up in 4th place of the class, the 14th overall by Ollie Pimley ahead of Emma Ryu, who's very quickly making ground after what was a disastrous end to race number 1. And we'll surely get the story of that after the racing today. But as we look further back, Chris Cole, the man, of course, who was looking very quick in qualifying and looked quick at the start of the sprint race, ended up sideways midway through the race, coming down into the S's. And we side by side here with Matty Wild, who looks up the inside of him. And these two, they've battled each other for many a year in multiple series, and right now they'll be familiar with each other and each other's styles of racing. As they make the run to the back straight, they're still too wide here, and well, Matthew Wild's definitely, he's not been at the very front of the silver field, but he's enjoyed some absolutely incredible moments, including unfortunately a 2-for-1 overtake that we did miss at Interlagos, but he's definitely been having a lot of fun as one of the Race by Wire series organisers for racing under what is the series of DCW Racing as a team. But into the braking zone they go, and will Colby swarms. There's a big dive up the inside from Daniel Shilcock, who takes all 3 drivers there. He came out of nowhere to make the moves. Cole, in fact, Cole's been collected on the exit of the corner. He's into the barrier, and well, Alexandre Longchamp has parked up there, and I think he feels responsible perhaps for what's happened to Chris Cole, and that's why he's waited there. But I think he's realised that Cole's going nowhere quick, and therefore he's carried on his race. But good courtesy there from Alexandre Longchamp, and well, we'll get an understanding of what's exactly happened to him shortly. But as all these drivers make the way weaving on around, well, we do have a question there saying, is there something wrong with the timing graphics? And well, do let us know why that is Dononta J at 51, because right now the time graphics seem to be okay, unless I'm missing a trick here. But meanwhile, all the fighting that's going on, well, Patrick Falcon and Matt Strand side by side here, and well, these two roaring their way out to turn number 7 and heading down the back straight they go, and Strand still looking for a move, but there's plenty of time in this one to make news. But right now, both of these drivers are very eager to make time on each other as early as humanly possible. And I wonder whether potentially for what Strand, he feels as though here he's got the pace to win the race. He just needs to clear everyone. The only problem is he's back in the company of one of the drivers he usually enjoyed plenty of battles with over the course this season, Patrick Falconer. They go through the chicane all the way through it. Their cars bounced around, and Adam Klanvik gets to watch his teammate do this battling. But as we ride aboard here with the Ice Cold Racing Buyback Sim Racing car, he goes out wide. He lets Sproul through there. I don't think that was by design, and Sproul's had a monster run as they head in towards turn number 1. Well, here they all go into that braking zone. Sproul's not going to find it, but he's into second place in the silver class. They head up the hill, and as they roar the way up, well, right now we can see that the whole queue of cars behind here, it looks like a traffic jam in the US state of Georgia. It's not, it's Porsche Cup cars racing to the pack, and as they come down the hill, well, there's 2 teammates side by side. They'll both be on the radio to each other trying to converse as to how they best navigate this, and when Klavik backs off there, letting the man who won race number 1 over what he go of Oscar Berntsson. And for Berntsson, this has been a slow start to the race. He's only now moved up to 8th place, but I wonder whether here today he's taken a much more considerate drive by comparison and what's happened to the previous couple of rounds where he has won the sprint and then lost out in the feature race. I think he's trying to look for the bigger picture, but that's not a good picture there, as Josh Boot goes all the way spinning around after contacting the inside of Sproul's car, and well, Boot comes off the worst of the 2, and right now he'll try to get himself turned back around as quickly as he can in racing, but Josh Boot falls all the way down to 19th place. But goodness me, everywhere you look right now, there's absolutely frantic action, no doubt about it, and we still need a resolution of what is Patrick Falconer's position on this running order, because after he held off Matt Strand, well, there's Kimandre Bjørklund just going straight up the inside of it and says, what's the problem, Matt? I could do it as easy as that. Albeit that was far from easy, to be fair, but that's how he made it look, perhaps. And right now, Strand will be thinking to himself, why can't I pass the DCW racing car? But he can. And well, the answer is, I think there, Bjørklund just has that little edge of pace here at Road Atlanta that Strand's perhaps lacking. But Bjørklund goes a bit deep there. That's going to cost him some momentum up the hill. As you can see, immediately, Falconer tucks right back in. And Strand here right now all over the back of the cars in front of him, hoping to get a bit more involved. But Sproul's there, the second place silver driver at the moment. And Sproul right now, he's definitely not made today easy for himself by any means. But right now, I think he's trying to settle himself down and knows that he's second in silver. The only man between him and a silver victory is Aaron Herbert. But Herbert in himself is 5 seconds up the road and gaining. But the battle in front of him right now, he's got to try and negotiate it. A Falcon and Strand go 2 wide in towards turn number 6. 2 wide they enter. 2 wide they exit. Now Strand back on the inside immediately here. It is literally deja vu once again, as Sproul has to pull out the toe. He gets so close to the corner exit, given the speeds they have. And well, to give you an idea, as we bring out the dashboard on the bottom right corner of your screen, of remembering qualified, we saw drivers pushing upwards of 160 miles an hour into this braking zone. We're in that draft right now with the side draft as well. This is going to build even more here as Sproul looks down into the braking zone, but has to lift off the throttle there, otherwise he'd be doing 170 at the braking zone. As Sproul right now finds himself in the traffic jam as he tries to poke his nose on the inside there of Falconer. Falconer right now like a rolling roadblock, but Sproul finds a way on the inside over 11. Can he get it done into 12? The answer is yes, no, yes he can. can do it, and Sproul is finally through into 5th place, and Berntsson comes on through as well, and suddenly Patrick Falconer loses 1, he loses 2, he loses 3 places in all of it, because Richard Simnor squeezed on past an ECW Racing teammate of his, and now up the hill they go once again, and just like that, one small battle suddenly turns into a 4-way battle for position, and Patrick Falconer losing all those places in the space of what was only 3 corners. As they head onwards towards another lap. Well, that's only just the opening 7 minutes or so. We've still got plenty more to come here. But now it Sproul's past Patrick Falconer. Do you think, or do we think that he's going to be able to close up to Aaron Herbert? Give us your thoughts in the YouTube chat, ladies and gentlemen, if you do. As meanwhile, Sproul right now has got Oscar Berntsson trying to go around the outside of him. And right now the Gold Championship leader here, he now sees the hurry-up order. And as he makes his way through the 2 right-handers, all that momentum on that outside, surely that's going to carry him forward. But Richard Simnor comes through with him. And Sproul right now out of line here. Well, the problem is he's got no distant draft to work with. This is going to cost him time. So they make the way down towards the next braking zone. And as they do, well, these drivers right now, they're all battling hard here. And Berntsson and Simnor, well, there's a rivalry here that's building. And right now, Berntsson just trying to make sure Simnor knows his place behind him. I get the feeling Simnor right now won't know that until it's going to be Berntsson who stamps his authority on this one. And Sproul get the better run off the corner here. He's trying to come back at Simnor. Looking on the inside of turn number 12. Sproul right in the thick of the fighting with all these gold drivers. You know, as well our silver drives, but it's so important that he clears them, or at least settles down with them, as that's almost 3 wide into turn 1. DCW Racing, they're not just going for the photo opportunity, they're going all in on each other. My good lord, it's DCW Civil War here. And once they make the way out the hill, well, right now I can tell you one thing, Marvel's Civil War moves to the Captain America series have got nothing on this as they make the way down the hill, but right now they somehow all avoid knocking each other out, but they're all superheroes for that. And well, Simnor, Falconer and Jones, that's their order, with Jack Atkinson queuing up behind them. Further back, we do also have some fighting outside the top 15 to make you aware of. And here is Chris Halsoy at the back of Mark Collicott trying to break his way into the top 15 overall. It's for 6th place in the silver class right now, but they're enjoying a good scrap. And here we have a change of position as well, as I believe Nino Bronze had a little bit of a mishap going down for turn number 4, and Van Hoot immediately jumps up the inside of there into the S's and takes back 13th place in silver class, and with a couple of points if he finishes that way. But with all this, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look back to the start of the race and what was Matt Sproul's start and what exactly went wrong for Sproul when he got it going. So this was Sproul. He's on the right of your picture, starting second. And as the lights went out, well, you're going to see he's going to have the better start compared to his fellow front man of none other than was Patrick Falconer in the 96. And, well, Sproul took the lead in this. He's so much speed as he went into turn 1. We left him for a moment. He went so hot into the zone. Then in the end, he went to the grass. He rejoined. And that's how he suddenly lost all the places that he gained right at the start. And he was muscled back down the order. And, well, elbows out there between himself and the number 35, Oscar Berntsson. And he was able to get ahead. And they had to fight with a 1-1-3 as well of none other than Nick Clement. So that explains all of that. But hold up, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to come back to your live pictures because there's been a bit of drama. There's cars into the grass here at turn number 1, and that is Patrick Falconer. With him is Andy Jones. And right now, I can tell you one thing, DCW racing cars do not grow in the grass. They go round in it. And right now, Patrick Falconer goes spinning around. Andy Jones, meanwhile, he's in a car that's seen much better days. They're going to both have to tow to the pits at this rate. I think there's been a bit of contact between the two of them, but I can't tell you what's happened. But thankfully, we have a replay coming up to show you as we are Krista Halsey gets passed by Daniel Shilcott there. Shilcott now back up into 13th place. Indeed, we've got plenty of replays we'd like to bring you with all the action that's happening live on circuit right now. Well, we understandably here, we've got to focus on that just as much. But here is Simon Bamber versus Aaron Herbert, and Herbert looking around the outside here as Bamber's got ahead of him the run down towards the chicane. But right now, Herbert is tucking in behind, and Bamber might just be able to start controlling this race. And we're in good time as well because Kim-Andre Bjørklund is only a second behind these guys. He'll now be starting to feel the distant draft or the slipstream, if you will, and understandably at this point of the race he'll be thinking to himself, right, settle it for the long ride, I now need to try and close them down. And Bamber will hope that if Bjørklund does get close to Herbert, Herbert will hold him up. But Bamber's first, he's got to clear the Drive Lounge racing machine, and that's not going to be an easy task, because Aaron Herbert's gone very strong in this race so far today, and I think the number 3 driver here fancy his chances of finishing on the overall podium, if not taking the overall win, which we have yet to see a silver driver take an overall win this season. We have seen a silver driver take an overall podium twice. That's Glenn Gondoliers, both in the feature race at Interlagos and at Le Mans, but nobody in the silver class has taken an overall win yet. And, well, can Simon Bamber make sure that doesn't happen here? We will see. But meanwhile, whilst we do get a bit of breathing room from all the madness and mishaps, well, meanwhile, we come back to the mishap from earlier, and this is what happened to Andy Jones, and with him, Patrick Falconer. So, Jones had already been involved in an incident here. The car was in an absolute state as he made his way to stop on what was the escape road. Here was the earlier moment of the incident. This explains it all. So in towards turn number 1 they went, and in the end Jones came in very hot. Contact there with Falcon, who'd gone deep, so in the end they misinterpreted each other, and Glenn Gondoliers again comes into the scene of an incident that he wasn't part of originally, and he makes himself part of it, not by choice, and that's where it all went wrong. This was the on board from Glenn Gondoliers' perspective for Pegasus Sim Racing, and well, making his way through turn number 1, and in the end, the 2 cars in front, he won't see him until it's too late. He was behind other cars, he was obscured, and suddenly the truth was revealed to him, the number 99 driver into the barrier there, and his race in absolute tears, and understandably right now I can imagine Glenn will be getting out of that car and absolutely fuming for the simple reason he's had so much go right over the last 2 rounds, and here today at Road Atlanta it's all just gone so horribly wrong. But you have days like that in the championship, and what he's got to do once he's got it out of his system, once he's done what we like to say in the UK is thrown his teddy out the pram, whereby essentially you get all that mist out of you, all that anger out of you, he's got to regroup and think to himself, right, Road Atlanta, disaster, look ahead to next time, because the next round of racing is only a week away, and indeed we've got no breaks this season. It is weekly racing all the way to your season finale, but still that's a long way away, the season finale. Let's stay in the present right now, and in the present, well, your top 3 they're getting closer and closer together. And as they make the way down, well, Bamber, Herbert, and also Bjørklund, they're now separated by only 6 tenths in totality. As you can see, Herbert looks one way to the other. Bamber goes defensive. Herbert tries to sweep around the outside. He gets it in the Duckens machine. But does he get it together on the corner X as the car bounces over the curve? They really love to abuse the inside of the turn 10B curve. But in the end, Bamber does manage to get the switch back here. 2 wide out of 12. And, well, my goodness, what brilliant racing between these 3. Here comes Bjørklund. Bjørklund's going to make it 3 wide into turn 1. You don't do this. He goes all in. Bamber backs out. And meanwhile, Herbert tries to go around the outside. He almost gets it as Aaron Herbert, but Kim-Andre Bjørklund, he's absolutely brave as a bull. And in the end, my good lord, the number 88 driver steals the lead over the other 2 immediately. And right now, well, Kim-Andre Bjørklund was going for move of the season. I think he's now got it, ladies and gentlemen. That's going to be very hard to beat after that. That was incredible. But to be fair, Simon Bamber, well done to him for knowing when to back out and not fully to commit, because otherwise that could have been in tears. And Aaron Herbert in the end just decided, well, I'll take the outside line and just see what happens, and he almost made it work as well. What an incredible moment between those guys. We're going to be talking about that one for the rest of the season. But meanwhile, as they carry on, well, Oscar Berntsson, he in the rear of the picture has passed Mats Strand. They changed places at the end of the last lap coming down to the chicane, and right now the championship leader in gold, where he's going to try and chase down those leaders, and if they keep fighting like that, understandably, I think right now Oscar Berntson's going to be thinking to himself, you know what, I could probably catch up to him at this rate. But Strand's got Sproul to worry about, and here comes Matt Sproul trying to perform some magic of his own. The only problem is I don't think he's going to get as easy or warm of a reception for the ice-cold racing driver here. In fact, I think he's going to get the chill off of him, pun intended, as they make the way over the hill and down towards the next lap. And, well, Richard Simnor's not too far behind. As what we can see there, Jack Atkinson and Nick Clemens further back towards the very bottom of the top 10. They've got their own conversation to have as Emma Ryu tries to push her way through, and right now chasing after third place in silver. Adam Klamvik is at the head of this group, and well, you can see there as well, Chris Dalsway looks up the inside of Clemens. It's absolute warfare here between our gold and silver drivers at the bottom end of the top 10 and rounded off that top 15. They're all going for it. So hold up a second, that's not the racing line, as Josh Booth there gives us a bit of a rallycross display. He goes wide at turn 1, but rejoins successfully down in 14th place right behind Mark Collicott, and well, he could not have timed that better in terms of how he rejoined there, and Collicott will be impressed with that, as Alan McCain meanwhile gets into the back of this group. But right now, whether it's at the front of the field or in the middle of the field, we have got scraps going on every which way here at Road Atlanta, ladies and gentlemen. It is absolutely sensational, although Boot unfortunately has picked up a yellow flag. That will be a slowdown for track limits, and he will have to serve that by the time he gets to turn 7. He does so just about. He avoids how to serve it on the straight, but meanwhile we come back to those already down to the other end of the long back straight, and here is Bjørklund with Aaron Herbert looking up the inside, and Herbert here goes for it. And right now, Aaron Herbert, he's trying to become the first silver driver to take an overall win in that Duckens machine. And well, over the crest they come. He takes the lead for now. Bjørklund backing off a little bit there. I think he's playing the game right now, which is you've still got half the race to go. There's no point fighting too hard early, as always you're just going to bring this man who's in the rear of the picture, and he's bringing everyone else with him. Oscar Berntsson, they are all closing up here, and right now we could have a 6-car battle for the win in this race if things continue at this current pace. Everyone's getting closer together. little by little. Road Atlanta is definitely giving us so much to talk about here today in terms of battles up and down the field, and this is a round that definitely is going to serve to shake up the championship standings. We say that every round, but so far this season it really has been every round has upped the ante and has given us another chapter in the book of season 1 of the Porsche Cup by Race by Wire. And right now this one is definitely going to be multiple volumes in terms of all the stories that are coming out of it. We've seen heroic so far, and I don't think we have completely seen all of them, as we do see Jack Atkinson's car deciding to go to the stratosphere almost on the front end. That's because of hitting the apex curve of turn number 5 so hard and high. Well, in the end, Atkinson right now just keeping it nicely tucked together as we want the back of this whole group. Here is the Irish Esports 212 of Alan McCain. He wants to get into this, but the problem is he's at the back of a long train. Now, some would say this is a nice place to be. It not always is, to be fair, because the problem he's got is the fact that everybody has got the draft on the next car, and nobody necessarily wants to fight each other, because fighting will cost them the ability to stay with the next car in front, if you see where we're coming from. So therefore you have to really weigh up, do you fight with the next car in the sequence, or do you stay with them? Well, Boots going to go for a move here on Collicott, goes all in, feeling as though Collicott's holding him up, and it really is a gauge of, do you think you are quicker than the guy in front and you're able to get that move done within one move to then catch up to the next group? But because their fight's not over, look at how that gap's opened up. Suddenly Nick Clemens, the next car up, is now 1.3 seconds up the road. That's how quickly battling costs you time. And as they make the way towards turn 1, well, now Boot's going to go for it again, but they'll both be aware of the fact they're just losing time. Hand over fist here as Boot does sweep his way to the outside of 2 in the end to get it done. But now he's got to try and close 1.4 seconds down on Nick Clemens. That may not be easy. We'll have to see what goes on in front, and also where Boot's got the pace to catch up given the state of his car. But meanwhile, whilst all that's happened, at the front, change of leader, Kim-Andre Bjørklund back ahead of Aaron Herbert now. They've swapped the places again. That happened at the end of the previous lap. Going on to what was this one of lap 14. Oscar Berntsson now, he's on the back of the top 3 here. He's arrived at his destination. He wants a role to play here as they get ready to head into the chicane. But how quickly would he go for these moves? And does Bamber decide to hold him back, or does he decide to let the driver from Ice Cold Racing make his way to the head of this group, or at least make his way forward and become a bit of a disruptive force? We will see. But in fact, he goes to switch back there. There's the answer, and Bamber doesn't fight it too hard here as they get ready to sweep their way past our apex cam with that high speed. We see them come right on through, and even more cars here as we do see Richard Simnor's got ahead of Mats Strand in what's the chicane, with Strand having a slowdown penalty over at the door. And in fact, we've got a black flag for Matt Sprell. I don't believe it for Sprell. If it rains, it pours for the man, even on a sunny day. And Sprell right now has a drive-through penalty that is for instant points, as I'm to understand it. So that will be for contacts and also off tracks, whereby they have 17 as their allowance. And well, every time they make contact with another car, if it is registered as an illicit contact, it's 4 instant points. And for every time they go off track and breach a track limit, it's a single instant point. And well, those instant points can be queued up quite quickly. And for Sprell, he will have to serve that drive-through penalty within 3 laps of being awarded. So therefore, it's this lap, lap 16 or lap 17. After that, it goes straight through, I do believe, to what will be a disqualification for the race. So he can't escape this right now. He will have to serve it, and that is gutting. But what it does mean is that Adam Klavik right now, with Emery behind him, these two are fighting over second place in silver right now. Not that they will know it until they do see Sprell have to come into the pit lane, unless they've heard over the radio. But meanwhile, Ryu, they're getting a better run out of turn 7. And Klavik, meanwhile, looking as though he was snail's pace out the corner because he went too deep into it. And well, Ryu will get ahead, but now this will be where who's the better on the brakes. And well, Ryu's going to the best part of about 2 to 3 miles an hour pace advantage here. So we'll come into the braking zone, sweeps the inside there, not wanting Klavik to dare launch it up the inside of return. And well, as they make the one out, Ryu gets into 3rd, and Sprell stays out at least for now as they roar the way on to the next lap. So Sprell's times at the moment will definitely staying out there, but he knows that his time will gradually be up in this running order as Klavik try to look around the outside of the Italian driver now, and well, can he get it done? The answer is not quite. Jack Atkinson now, he tucks in behind as well as they make the way up the rise, and when the sun shines here, that glare off the road's not going to help them sight their braking zone. They don't exactly have a braking market. It's more done by feel into turn 2, but of course you do sometimes look for patches of tarmac that are slightly more worn by comparison with the rubber's been laid down. But the race by wire driver here all over the back of the car in front of him. But of course, through the S's, the Constantina says they will fall away. But bear in mind, he does have Krista Halsoy, Nick Clemens and Josh Boot very close behind. And here they are, as you can see. And Axel right now playing a game of juggling, whereby he needs to stay close to the two silvers in front of him, but he also needs to make sure that the gold and silver drives behind him, they don't get too close enough to try and feel confident to make a move on him. But it is very much back and forth between all of them. But into the final third of this race we go, and this is where one of the big things we haven't talked about today starts to come in: tyre degradation. Tyre wear here at Road Atlanta is very severe. There's a lot of high load corners, and therefore drivers might be starting to feel the pinch on their tyre compounds, particularly the front left tyre. But meanwhile, as Ryu goes defensive here versus Klanvik, Klanvik's not going to be allowed through. And Sprell meanwhile comes into the pit lane for his drive-through penalty due to instant points, and well, that is going to relegate him down behind these guys right now. So Sunny Emma Ryu will find that she's been promoted to second in silver, so she crosses the line as Adam Klanvik there crossed the line and crossed the grass as well. And well, as Jack Atkinson looks for a cheeky move up the inside, he's not going to find it, but what he will find is the fact that that move is going to cost him a bit of time with Krista Halsoy and Nick Clemens getting closer behind. Sprell still leaving the pit lane as Mark Collicott makes about the hill, and Sprell just starts to leave the pit lane now. There you can see with the rear of the picture, and it puts him all the way down to 16th place. So the HRT driver here will now know that it's all gone backwards at this point, and he's now got to try and make things move forwards over 8 minutes. So well, never say never, because miracles do happen in motorsport, but I think the silver win may not be on the cards, but you never know, he might be able to squeeze his way back into a top 5 if he absolutely nails it for the remainder of the race. Further back, we've got Ben Sieber here being on the chase versus Matty Wild. These two have enjoyed a bit of a scrap, and it's starting to build up, with Wild having made a good number of places and moved all the way from 12th to 9th in the silver class. But right now, Sieber, he's made even more places by comparison. I think he'll be very happy at this one, even if it is a 10th place in the silvers. And well, just trying to make sure he can find one more spot if he can. But these two very close to each other on pace, and indeed the lap times between the drivers have been absolutely tense and tight. And Wes delivered an absolute firework of a show. But from these drivers, further towards the bottom end of the top 20, we come back to the very front of it. And Kibadjo Bjørklund, after taking the lead this race back not off of Oscar Berntsson, but off of Aaron Herbert, he has now broken away to the tune of 1.5 seconds. Berntsson has since found his way past Aaron Herbert, but what's quite intriguing is the fact that 1.5 second gap is not necessarily coming down at the rate of knots that Berntsson would like. However, now that I've said that, previous lap, it was 3 attempts he's been able to slash the gap down. So at that rate of knots, 2 laps time, he will be in the tow. As Simon Bamber there goes very wide out of turn number 5. That'll be an off track. However, he does manage to keep it together there rather than go to the outside wall. With that high exit curve really unsettling the suspension, it can actually cause the car to bottom out, essentially, where the undertray of the car suddenly mounts onto the curb. It actually touches the curb. The wheels, meanwhile, or the suspension over compresses, and suddenly you get this pogo effect on the rear suspension, and that will prepare the car one way or the other. It will have sent it to the inside of the circuit, where there's a barrier, or the outside, where the barrier is even a lot closer. So therefore, they've got to be careful that exit curve at turn number 5, and that's where the risk of running load ride height here comes. Of course, they want their ride heights to be as low as humanly possible within the regulations, so that way they've got as little air as possible under the car and the least amount of aerodynamic drag. But if you run it that low, of course, and you hit those curves at the wrong angle, you can suddenly bottom out the car, and well, you end up in what could be a very nasty end to your race. But meanwhile, we had a bit of an incident off camera for Fabrizio Penzo, who's had to tow to the pit, sadly. I'm not sure if we're going to be getting a replay of that anytime soon, but we are looking here towards the battle for second place in silver. Ryu ahead of Klanvik, and in fact Klanvik has fallen away from Ryu over the last 2 laps, and now Atkinson is there, and Krista Halsoy is perhaps the man who Klanvik should be worried about, because he's the 4th place silver driver at the moment, and he would love to add another podium to his finish. Not quite the 2nd place podium of Le Mans, but if he can make it a 3rd place, I think he'd be chuffed with that. But Josh Boot right now may have other ideas here as he bounces his way between the apexes of the S's, and out to turn number 5 here. Very good exit there from Boot. In fact, oh, that's around for Jack Atkinson, who goes spinning out to turn number 5, and then in that exit curve, catching him out. We talked about it, only moments to go. And for Jack Atkinson, that car right now, the suspension has dropped to the front left side, front right of your picture, ladies and gentlemen. And as he rejoins for Atkinson, that's the car that's going to have to come into the pit or be towed. It is damaged. It cannot carry on, and that's why he's got the meatball flag. But as he brings it back together, he'll try and survive it. He'll want to get it home. He'd rather do that than wait for it to be towed, because otherwise it's going to cost him double the time. Or at least that's the way he'll perceive it. And Bertrand Torres here will come through. And Torres right now in a lonely 8th place in the silver class. Well, this will be a place overall he can take very gradually here, as right now Atkinson's not running out straight line speed too quickly. but as they look to swap things around here, these two, and Tors finally moves into 16th place. Well, now on to lap 20. 4.5 minutes left to go, and well, it's the battle of the two Nordic drivers here, but can Bjørklund hold on just for a little bit longer? The gap is now down to 9/10. Berntsson is not playing games. He is chasing him down furiously, and understandably here, well, he has a reputation to uphold, but does Berntsson. He is, of course, the Gold Drivers' Championship leader coming into this round. He also currently, as well, is the Division 1 Championship leader in the iRacing official open setup series of the iRacing Porsche Cup by Conspeed. So Berntsson right now, he is looking for this season of 2026 to be the man who is the winner of everything Porsche Cup related, and as he makes his way down the back straight, I can tell you one thing right now, Berntsson is hustling, but Bjørklund is not slow by any means, and meanwhile the fight for third, it's Aaron Herbert, the silver leader, ahead of Simon Bamber. Now, if you are Aaron Herbert at this point, well, one thought process would be just let this go. And I think he is going to it because he's got under no threat from second place in silver. Emery is 12 seconds back, nowhere near close enough. Herbert might as well let this go and just prioritise taking the silver win. And I think he may just do that at this rate or not, given the fact that time is running out here. He's had his fun. He's had his chance to try and battle for the overall win, and he held on to it for some time and enjoyed a good scrap. But in the end, I think tyre degradation has just slightly got against him. Plus also the fact the consistency of his gold peers is really shining as we're getting deeper and deeper into this 30-minute race. Although that's not to the detriment of Aaron Herbert. He's definitely laid out a huge mark here today, as the car definitely lays down a big bounce on the front left suspension rod there, and will somehow it's able to withstand it. But as he comes down through the S's, well, meanwhile Mats Strand, he's on a recovery drive here. His first target of Mark Collicott now is very much in his sights. As they head up the hill, we ride aboard with the number 5 HRT Nexus Racing, and well, once he passes him, should he be able to, it's then Alan McCain 9/10 up the road at least for now. As Sparrow gets so close there coming out at turn number 3 into 4, and Collicott taking so much apex curve there at turn number 3. You can see what it does to the car. It just completely blunts the ability to return to full throttle. Sparrow meanwhile a lot more conscious of these curves, and well, the ones he's able to ride, he does so confidently, but the ones he feels they're going to take all the pace, you'll notice he actively is avoiding them, and that's where he's getting the pace on Collicott. Collicott meanwhile really mounting those curves, feels as though it's absolutely central to his line, and was they make the way out turn number 7. Sparrow, they get a lovely cut back on the apex. You could see went for a nice tight apex line. That's given him the blast of acceleration he's needed, plus the draft here, and well, surely he's going to have the overspeed to go for this. They drag race their way down towards turn number 10A, but as they get ready to battle the brakes here, well, they'll both be looking for the distant toe off of Alan McCain's car, and in the end Sparrow's going to get this done under braking, and Collicott just does not have an answer. For 2 minutes left to go, 2 more laps left in the race here. We will be getting a grand total of 23 laps of racing here in our feature race, and well, a bit further back, Ben Seaver fighting with Ollie Pimley. He has been able to dispatch Matty Wild, only a few laps to go, with Wild having a bit of an error. But right now, Pimley and Seaver going side by side. They're fighting over 9th place in the silver class. Pimley going outside to inside. Seaver still trying to hang it all the way around the outside. This is brave from Seaver to do so. And in the end, Pimley's going to get ahead. Seaver backs off there, not willing to fully commit to the 2 wide. I don't blame him for it, to be fair. I think you need to be a little bit closer and ahead on the nose to be able to do so. So they will swap the places around there. As meanwhile, Rob Van Hoot is into the pit lane. Well, I'm sure he'll be making his way back out in due course. That's going to drop him behind Matty Wild. But meanwhile, from the back of the field, we come back to the front, and here is your leader with only another lap after this one, as in fact Daniel Shilcock, he's been involved in an incident and he's had to tow to the pits. We won't be able to get a replay of that now, as meanwhile Simon Bamber and Aaron Herbert are enjoying another little bit of ding-dong battling here in towards the chicane, and well, I think Herbert's decided he's going to go for it every so often if he can, but right now it's crunch time, because white flag waves. We're on our final lap here at Road Atlanta in round 4 of the championship, and in this 30-minute feature race, Kim-André Bjørklund is only 1 lap from seeing a victory. But as we do see there, Rob Van Hoot making his way up the hill, he's not going to get in the way of Oscar Berntsson at all. And Berntsson right now is going to have to try and chase down the man in front of him one last time here today. But for the Ice Cold Racing by MaxSimRacing.com machine, well, I can tell you one thing, he's made his way all the way through to second. It's been a much better feature race compared to what was at Le Mans, where he couldn't move further than 7th. But here right now, I think he may have just run out of steam. Has he met his match here today? Has Kim-André Bjørklund confirmed that he's not just there to pick up the pieces when it goes wrong for everybody else, that he has also got the credentials here to make sure that Oscar Berntsson isn't the only man who's taken to the top step of the podium time and time again? Well, it seems that way, because Berntsson right now, as he exits turn 7, it's not the best exit. And Bjørklund, meanwhile, looking very comfortable as they make the way down towards turns 10. Again, And as they get ready for that chicane braking zone, well, Bjørklund right now knows the pressure is not there in the fact that his rival is too far back to go for a lunge. If he was to do so, it would require the mother of all sins. But Berntsson doing everything he can to stay close, to keep Bjørklund under pressure, hoping that Saito will give way. He runs a little bit wide as Bjørklund, but as the checker flag gets ready to wave, running wide or not, Kim-André Bjørklund, he's going to take victory here in the feature race at Road Atlanta ahead of Oscar Berntsson, who runs home to second place. It will then be Simon Bambo who completes the overall gold podium ahead of Aaron Herbert, who takes his maiden win in the silver class of this season, 4th overall, ahead of Richard Simnor and Mats Strand. We're then at 7th place, going to your silver run-up of Emma Ryu, ahead of Josh Boot, and then it will be Krista Halsoy, 3rd on the silver podium, 9th on the road, ahead of Adam Klavik, who completes your top 10. Nick Clemens was best the rest in 11th, ahead of Matt Sprell, who did in the end recover to 5th place in the silver class of Alan McCain and Mark Collicott, although knowing what it could have been today. And then Burton Torres will come on through here shortly to complete the top 15, and we're at 8th place in silver, one of his best finishes of the season, and some good points for the man in the number 34. We've still got a bit of time before Ollie Pimley comes on through, just ahead of Ben Sieber after their battle that we called earlier on, and then it will be Alexandra Longju who will come on through in 18th place there, 2 seconds ahead of Matty Wild, who holds off Jack Atkinson to the finish line, and Atkinson will have to settle for 20th place. David Biggerdite will be your last lead lap finisher in 21st place ahead of Rob Van Hoot. And then we do see Nado Braun be your last finisher of this race, albeit a lap down, and he will take 23rd place. Well, a tough race for him indeed for the field. BIL.NO Pharrell Sport Racing Team. It has been a nightmare day at the office at Road Atlanta, especially for Mikey Pollard, where it's gone backwards before it's really got going. As all our drivers cool on down. What a race. And indeed, our sprint race was absolutely full of entertainment, no doubt about it. But the feature race absolutely turned it up to the maximum. And of course, that incredible 2-for-1 pass into turn 1 from Kim-André Bjørklund on the inside of both Aaron Herbert and Simon Bamber is what gave him the lead. And then after that, well, nobody could quite reel him in. As we see Matt Strand here, he'll be happy with the 6th place overall, 5th in class, and has still some good points on the board, but also he'll know the fact that right now, for Kim-André Bjørklund and Oscar Berntsson, the two of them just seem to be slightly ahead of the curve, and the 185 driver is going to need to find a new ace if he wants to get a bit closer. But as they all cool them down, ladies and gents, but it has been an incredible round of racing, no doubt about it. And let's take a look to your scenic view, and with it, the race results from our feature race, subject to any stewards' inquiries. So as we can see, after an absolutely entertaining 30 minutes of racing here in our feature for round number 4 of Season 1 of the Race by Wire Porsche Cup, brought to you on iRacing, goodness me, and sponsored by none other than Energise Virtual Solutions. Well, Kim-André Bjørklund in the end, your winner for Sim Racing Norway by what was 6 tenths to the end over Oscar Berntsson. Now, what is a 2-time feature race winner, the Sim Racing Norway driver will be absolutely ecstatic about that. But Oscar Berntsson, to be fair, won't be too upset. He finished runner-up, 9 that he won the sprint. Therefore, it's almost a perfect day in the office for the number 35 driver from Sweden. The Briton there, Simon Bamber for Effect Simulations, fought hard for a 3rd place. Unfortunately, didn't quite materialise into a win in the end, but still his best result of the season so far in the 912. Head of Aaron Herbert, your silver class winner there in the number 3 for Drive Lounge Racing. His first win of the season in the class, and a very well-earned win at that, albeit a mistake from Matt Sprell at the start definitely opened up the door, but after that, Aaron Herbert definitely showed us the way. Richard Simnor finished 5th for what was the DCW Racing Blue team, enjoyed some great battles there once again, and managed to hold off Matt Strand, who had to settle for 6th, with the ice-cold racing driver followed up by Emma Ryu, the Italian driver in 7th place there for ERR by the organisation, and after the disappointing end to race number 1, which we believe was due to a lack of fuel in the car, Ryu doing very well to recover to 2nd place in the feature race. 8th was Josh Boot. Overall, the Atomic Esports driver just ahead of Krista Halsoy, who rounds off the silver podium for Track6 Racing, and it was Adam Klanvik who completed your top 10 there for Ice Cold Racing, powered by Maxim Racing, just missing out the podium there by only half a second. But still, he was 10th overall, and best the rest on 11th place was Nick Clibbins for iRace Esports in the 113, head of Matt Sprell for HRT Nexus Racing, who recovered well towards the end to push his way all the way to that 5th place in the silver class after that drive-through penalty for instant points, and then Alan McCain was 13th for iRace Esports, just ahead of Mark Collicott by 2 tenths of the finish line. Burton Torres took 15th place for Yentl Drive ahead of Ollie Pimley, with Ben Sieber, Alexandra Longju, Matty Wild and Jack Atkinson completing a top 20. And outside that top 20, well, for David Biggerdite, he finished on the lead lap, but it wasn't the race he wanted today for DCW Racing Red, and a lap down the end was Rob Van Hoot, head of it was Daniel Shilcott there, I should say, as I get my names mixed up there, and Will Shilcott taking that 23rd place for Track6 Racing ahead of Nido Braun, within 2 laps down, going to Fabrizio Penzo in 25th. He was your last finisher of the race, and then we did have the following retirees of Patrick Falconer, Andy Jones, Glenn Gondoliers, Chris Cole and Mikey Pollard. Well, ladies and gents, it was a tough race for some, but an exciting one for many, and indeed, in the end, a brilliant race win for Kim-Andre Bjørklund, and a solid drive to second place for Oscar Berntsson. But as our circuit falls silent, well, the good news is, whilst the racing may be over today, we've still got time for post-round interviews for our drivers, and we'll be back in approximately 5 minutes' time for those interviews and the thoughts on what has been an absolutely energetic day of racing here at Road Atlanta. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, it is time for our interviews. And my good lord, I've been left absolutely breathless from our races today. Thankfully, somebody else is going to kick off with all the talking now for a little bit of time, and we're going to be hearing from ERR by the organisation's Emma Ryu, who now joins me in the interview room. Good evening to you, Emma. What a day of racing for yourself, and so many today. Road Atlanta full of excitement, but in the end, you found yourself right in the thick of it. How was it for you?
Well, pace was really nice, Paul. Good evening to everyone. Got pole position, really happy about that. Was about to win the race one. Unfortunately, we made a miscalculation on the fuel, so we ran out of fuel by 1 liter.
Oh no!
And yeah, lost the win on the with what 5 corners to go. And so had to start from outside the top 20. I've never driven a race more focused and honestly quite angry at myself for bottling, honestly, because I bottled. And I ended up P2. Really nice to see that I could manage to race clean today. No accidents for me that impacted my race. Had a contact with another driver, but he apologized and said it is his fault. Luckily, I wasn't the one being spun by that contact. So yeah, got it for race 1. Really happy about the pace in race 2 and really happy about the pole position.
Well, a frustrating end to race number 1. We were wondering what happened. We guessed it might have been fuel, so thank you for confirming that. But pole position, qualifying, 2nd overall and pole in the silver class. I mean, when you looked at the times from yourself all the way through to, I think it was 15th place, if not 20th. It was about a second between 19 cars, and you were right at the head of that. You must have been proud, but also perhaps a bit shocked how close it was.
Yeah, it was really close, Paul. I actually didn't expect it because that time you guys saw on the broadcast was my 2nd flying lap, because I got an off track in my 3rd and didn't even finish my 4th because I made a mistake.
Oh, wow. I mean, to get it done so early as well, that is impressive, no doubt about it. And then going into the sprint race, of course, we know how it ended, but early stage of the race, it looked as though you were in control, although you gradually slipped behind the gold drivers and got drawn towards the silvers. Was that the plan, or did that sort of happen unexpectedly?
No, it was the plan. I mean, from the start of the race, me and my engineer, we knew what was going to happen. It happened in Le Mans, and we planned to make it happen today. Just don't fight the goals. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to make silly moves because they're in a rush. They're not going to be happy to be racing a silver driver, of course. And so let them by. We are going to score the same amount of points from the win or whatever position. And we're gonna get a better starting position in the future. So let's just let them buy and race from there. If the race was 1 last lap long, I would have got P1 and started, I think, something about P3 or P2 in silver class. So it was working out. Unfortunately, I made that mistake. I made that liter, and that's just racing. Luckily, as I told you in Brazil, my title rivals, they didn't have the greatest day, and those who did, I beat them. So I beat them anyway, starting from outside the top 20. So great race from the team, and much cleaner than Le Mans and Interlagos. So I saw a couple of crashes, but I gotta say good job to the grid for being cleaner than usual.
Oh, 100%. I mean, for all the excitement in the instance, like you say, it was very clean throughout. And in terms of your recovery on the feature race, of course, 22nd place start, you gradually picked your way through. I have to ask, what was it like on tyres today? Because obviously, feature races a lot longer, and this Road Atlanta circuit can be very heavy on tyre life.
Didn't really mind them. Didn't even think about the tires. I honestly didn't even think I was gonna finish so far ahead from my starting position. I was so angry at myself that I just didn't think about anything else than making those moves, turning my laps, being quicker than the others. That apparently has worked out. And honestly, I gotta say, I think my lap times were about the same throughout the whole race. I'm talking about clean air lap times, so I don't think my tires have suffered anything.
Oh, fair play. Well, high consistency of pace in the end and an impressive run from yourself to finish so high. So, of course, you may have dropped some points in the sprint, big recovery in the feature, things are looking good for yourself. What's the plan when we get to Monza?
Going on a home race doubleheader. So, well, as always, it's practice, and what we all know as drivers, even though we gotta practice to have the pace, there is no practice possible that can preview mistakes like the fuel or crashes, collisions, damage. So yes, it's practice for qualifying and pace overall, but it's also racecraft, mostly racecraft. So try to be even better in this section of my driving every single time I turn up on track, and trying to be as close as possible to the championship lead as I can. And of course, the drop round is gonna come in handy because you know what happened to me in Brazil. But regardless of that, trying to get the best out of myself and the situation I'm in every single lap.
Oh, absolutely fair. I think that's a sensible approach to take, particularly with the Italian doubleheader that's coming up, and you'll want to do well on home soil. But as we do get ready to let you go, Emma, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a mention to on the broadcast?
Yep, I want to shout out my brand new sponsors from Le Mans, the organization Racing. They've been supporting me, they've been on my car and on the name of my team, and they've given me the budget to buy all of the things I was missing to get to the end of this season. So big shout out to them, check out their website, their clothing, and thanks for sponsoring me.
Oh, fantastic. Well, that's brilliant news, Emma. And so glad that they've been able to support you and enable you to get yourself in that position to be competitive all the way through to the end of the season. You've been absolutely brilliant today, no doubt about it. And whilst it may have gone wrong in the sprint, you were still great up to when the car said you didn't have the fuel, and that was a great recovery in the feature. We'll leave it there, but congratulations on your performances. Thank you for your time, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, John. Have a great one too.
Well, here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Emma Ruiu, who very happy with her results today, no doubt about it. And we're confirming as well the fact, running out of fuel towards the end of race number 1, under fueling by a litre, but still it happens, and admitting there the fact that no amount of practice in the end will always quite make up for the fact that sometimes you make the wrong strategy call, or so you get involved in an instant. And of course at Le Mans, and at Interlagos even more so, it was instance that really played Ruiu's time there. But here today, a much more solid performance set, albeit, of course, in qualifying, absolutely leading the way in silver. And, well, one of the big what-if questions would have been, what if that third lap had been valid? Could it have been enough to challenge for pole position? We will never know. But what we do know is that Emma Ruiu is, right now, when she's on fire, she's absolutely burning hot out on circuit. And, well, the silver class has definitely got a huge star coming for its field. And you can imagine on the home soil next time at Monza, Emma Ruiu, we're looking to chase the double. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come. Next up, we're staying in the silver class, but we're hearing from another one of our stars. And so, ladies and gentlemen, it's now to Krista Halsoy, who joins me in YouTube. Good evening to you, Krista, and welcome once again. We just heard from one of our silver drivers who did, in the end, have a bit of a difficult day in the sprint and then a better day in the feature. Some would say it's the exact same story for yourself. 19th in the sprint, 9th in the feature. How do you feel coming away from Road Atlanta?
Well, I have mixed feelings, to be quite honest. I genuinely do love this track, but it's very difficult in this car because of the bouncing issues it has. I'm very happy with the results in the feature race, all things considering. So I can't really complain about that. But let's just say that the sprint race was suboptimal. We just talked between us, like a few drivers, saying the beginning of these races are almost comical, at least the sprint races, because it feels like people are driving a 2 or 3 lap sprint instead of a 12-minute one, where everyone needs to take 10 positions in turn 1, and it always causes a pile up. So I don't like to be negative, but it's starting to become a trend, and I'm not sure I like that.
I completely understand. And to be fair, I think if you're feeling that way, it's good to get it out there and talking to other drivers as well, just because always, much like what we mentioned earlier in today's broadcast, the racing standards are definitely being looked at by the stewards, and I'm sure a few incidents could be looked at the start of the racing day as well. But looking at some of the positives, perhaps, Emma Ryu may have dominated the headlines in the silver classes qualifying, but you were the second fastest, 6th overall. How was qualifying for you?
It was honestly, it was pretty good. I did leave some time on the table because I did some mistakes. It's one of those things where if you do go full send with the Porsche Cup here, the margin of error is so thin or so slim that any kind of relatively minor mistakes elsewhere will send you into the wall here. So it's honestly, it's better to shave off a few percent and just make sure you get to the line. But no, it was good. And like I said, I do enjoy the combo, and I adore the track, and I usually have good pace here, which I didn't really get to showcase, I guess, other than I managed to climb in the both races to an extent. But it's very difficult here to overtake in these cars. It's honestly a little bit more difficult than you might think. So but yeah, no, qualifying was great, and then we had the unfortunate sprint race, but really good in the feature race.
Well, indeed, and what we'll do, we'll skip over the sprint race and talk a bit about the feature. Now, coming on to your point about overtaking being challenging around here, of course, there were some incidents that occurred in front of you. They would have helped you gain some places, but when you needed to make overtakes, what was your formula to be able to make them happen?
Well, it's in some instances, you kind of just have to wait for a driver to make a mistake. There's a few good overtaking opportunities. The main one is very obviously into 10A after the long straight, but that also largely depends on setup error. Testing just like a 1 or 2 click on wing has a very significant impact on your speed down the straights, to the point where if you run 1 or 2 clicks more than the car ahead, they may actually outrun you. So it's not just as simple as putting in draft either here. It's very sensitive to that, at least in testing. So, but also in turn 5, if someone makes a mistake there or gets a weird bump, there's a very good overtaking opportunity into turn 6. And you can go too wide in that corner in turn 6 as well, but you need to trust each other for it to happen. And I did go too wide there a few times. I forget who it was next to, but there was one driver that lost control on the inside, which I think he was trying to be kind and leave a ton of space, but then ended up, I guess, probably over braking a little bit and over rotating the car and sliding out. So that's unfortunate. But it's hard. Most of it is trying to get in people's head and make them make a mistake, and you just drive normally and capitalize on that.
Oh, 100%. I'm with you on that. I'm sure many will agree that a lot of it comes down to the mind games as well as the actual positioning on circuit. But still, one thing that's definitely noticeable is the fact that no matter what happens, you're definitely resilient, mentally resilient that is, to when it goes wrong. And in the end, a 3rd place in the feature racing class. I mean, you must be proud to think that whilst the sprint didn't go well, to recover to a podium finish, it's definitely going to keep you right up there inside the top 3 in the championship.
Yeah, I am. I'm very happy with that, and I know I've mentioned this to you before, but I do try and remain consistent. I may not always be the fastest, but I try at least to be not among the slowest, and just try and keep it consistently towards the front, and just put my nose in a relevant fight, and see where that takes me in the long run. It's not about winning a single race; it's about trying to maintain high points gains if we want to fight for something over a season.
Oh, most definitely. And speaking of where the fights go to next, we next head up to Monza in Italy. What can we expect from you there?
Am I allowed to say nothing?
You can if you want to.
I am not best friends with Monza. I'll openly admit that. It's what's it called? It's called Variante Prima. No, the first chicane.
Yes.
I am absolutely terrible in. So if anyone wants to do an overtake, I'm open for dives. Just putting that out there. I am absolutely terrible in that chicane, and I'm probably not going to challenge anyone to it because that's gonna be bad news for everyone involved.
All fair play. Well, Monza may not quite be your cup of tea compared to other circuits, but still, we look forward to seeing what you are able to achieve there, given your consistency. But as we get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a mention or a shout out to on the broadcast?
As always, yourself for bringing your ever so kind and energizing spirit, and also I have to give a little bit of shout out and thanks to the guys running this, because there's been a lot of talking and I guess a lot of weight put on the people running it. Whether or not it's fair, I guess, is up for anyone to debate. But they're doing a good job in putting in the work to make it as fair as possible for everyone. So I just want to say thank you to them as well.
Well, and likewise, we need to say a big thank you to you, Krista, for your time this evening and joining me in the interview room. I always do love your enthusiasm, no doubt about it. And well, it may not have worked out in the sprint, but you bouncing back in the feature definitely has been one of the highlights of the day. We'll see you at Monza. It may be not the circuit you enjoy, but we'll see whether you can find some great results there. But until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Have a good evening.
So, hearing from none other than Krista Halsoy, and well, how about that? Already signposting. And then when he does get to Primo Variante or none other than what is the Rettifilio chicane at Monza, that he's going to be quite vulnerable there. But Monza isn't always a circuit for everybody. But Road Atlanta was definitely a circuit that Krista Halsoy enjoyed. Unfortunately, it didn't quite work out the way he wanted it to. Talking about the fact, the sprint race, early incident, and the fact that in the end, not too impressed with the way things played out, but at the same time as well, making a point, which is the fact that whilst things haven't worked out, well, there is a stewarding team in the background. He appreciates everything they're doing to look into the opening race incidents that do seem to be commonplace, at least how he's seen it. And I'm sure some may share that experience, but indeed, every driver's got their own fault to say on the race, and that's why we do have these interviews, of course, because at the end of the day, they are the ones who make up all the drama and the stories on the field. However, in the feature race, well, he bounced back incredibly well from 19th to 9th and telling us a little bit there about the places where overtakes were possible, including, of course, the chicane, the obvious one at turn 10A, but also talking about into turns 6 and 7, which we see him making his way through here, and also at turn number 5 there. So finding some key overtaking opportunities, not necessarily always where they may be available to others. But the thing with Krista, one thing for certain is no matter how bad a day he's had, he's always ready for the next fight up the road, and understandably, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Silver Championship from now to the finish line. But, ladies and gentlemen, we've got more interviews to come, and we will be back in another 10 seconds or so for our third interview of the night. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we now come to the man who today couldn't quite make it 2 wins out of 2, but he came very close. Joining me now is Oscar Berntsson in the gold class. Oscar, good evening to you, and well, after perhaps a bit of a frustrating day at Le Mans after the win in the sprint and then 7th place in the feature, surely today he's got to feel a lot better. It wasn't quite back-to-back wins, but it was so very close.
Yeah, I was pretty. Yeah, I'm happy with today's race. Road Atlanta has always been a track I'm struggling with. I don't know why, but it's something with it that doesn't suit my driving style. So I was happy with a podium today, and yeah, I managed to do better than that, so I'm pretty happy.
Well, I was going to say, if it's not one of your strongest circuits, the fact that you put it on pole by almost 3 attempts and then went on to win the first race and also come close to winning the second race, I mean, everyone's going to be asking, well, what are you going to be like when you go to your favourite circuit?
Sadly, we missed my favorite circuit, which was the Nordschleife on Nürburgring. So sadly, we're not going to that place. But I usually do pretty well at Monza. So next week, I hope, will be a good week. Though I am getting some new equipment to my rig, so maybe that will take me down a bit in the pace. But yeah, we'll see.
Oh, indeed we will. But before we get to Monza, just coming back to the racing today, of course, putting it on pole in the sprint race, we saw you really control the race in what was the early stage of the sprint. I mean, did you feel under a bit of pressure? Because we know here at Road Atlanta with the new Porsche Cup car, we do have a suspension that likes to jump around a little bit with those high curbs, but it looks like you were in full control in the sprint.
Yeah, I did quite a lot of training more training than I usually do yesterday, due to the fact that it's really hard to be consistent with the suspension on this track. It's you get 1 inch offline and you fly to the moon almost, it feels like. So it's tough, but I feel like race 1 I managed it pretty good. I got to a 1 second gap to Kim André, and there I felt pretty comfortable, so then I just was holding my pace and trying not to bin the car.
Well, you held it together very well in the sprint, and of course, starting 10th in the feature race. What was quite interesting is we saw you really stay around 10th place for at least the first 2 to 3 laps, and then you started to move forward. Was that always the plan? Because it looked as though you decided, you know what, the first 5 minutes, I'm just going to take really slow, just to make sure I don't do anything silly, then I'll go to work.
Yeah, exactly. Since Le Mans, I was pretty scared of the feature race with the top 10 reverse grid. So I was like, yeah, let's just survive and get some points. So I was just overtaking in the safe places and yeah, not trying to stress anything. But yeah, pretty much that's my plan, to just stay calm in the beginning until everyone calms down, so I don't get involved in any big incidents or crashes.
Well, a very sensible approach to be fair, and you were rewarded well, albeit when you did find your way to second place and you started to close the gap to Kim Andre Bjørklund. You got within half a second at one point, but it looked as though you didn't quite have enough to close him down. Was it just that the pace had run out, or had you settled for the fact that I don't need a win, a second place is more than enough?
I was pushing the last 10 minutes, like when I got P2. There was just zero. I was fully pushing. I thought I had him on I think it was the third last lap, until I got out of turn 5, and yeah, the suspension did its thing, and I had to lift off and lost half a second that I was not able to catch up in the remaining time of the race. So yeah, it was. I was trying, but Kim Andrea was faster, so not much to do.
Well, that's absolutely fair. I mean, you pushed it hard as far as you could, and still, it's going to be a huge haul of points as you leave Road Atlanta. We're going to Monza, and as you mentioned there, you fancy your chances at Monza, so that only leaves me to ask one final question, of course, which is there anyone you'd like to give a shout-out or a thank you to on the broadcast?
To the team and stuff like that, like everyone in my surroundings, for like mom and dad for helping me adjusting my life for this sim racing. So because it's my hobby, so thank you to them.
Oh, well, it's so great to hear that your parents do support you in your hobby, which you're incredibly good at. Let's put it there, Oscar. It's been a phenomenal day for yourself today. A win and a second place, followed up from that pole position. And we couldn't ask for more. And we will see you at Monza in a week's time to see whether you can add more wins to your score. Until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Same dude.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, for Oscar Berntsson. And, well, what's quite telling from the way he was talking about there was the fact that looking already ahead to Monza and fancying his chances there, whereas Road Atlanta, a circuit that he does not feel is one of his stronger circuits. And, well, if he can perform this well at a circuit where he feels it's one of his weaker ones, understandably, when we go to one of his stronger ones, he may just prove to be a weapon nobody can stop from winning. However, in the sprint race, played it safe, and he mentioned that here, where to hold the lead and then just gradually pull away, concerned about the effect of the suspension on the curbs here, or the pogoing effect as it's being nicknamed by drivers up and down the grid, with the way the suspension oscillates so aggressively on these curbs. And in the feature race, well, he played it safe, he played it smart, but that was more through concern of what happened at Le Mans in the feature race, whereby in the early stages he was moved down the order as a result of a lot of fighting, and then had to fight his way through, but that cost him the time and meant he only finished 7th. Unfortunately, as he got closer to the man he was chasing down, of Kim-Andre Bjørklund, in the end he couldn't quite close him down for the simple reason as he got towards him on what was lap number 21. A small mistake at turn number 5 cost him all the time he'd made up, and that was it. But first and second, huge score of points, and Oscar Berntsson's definitely going to be your championship leader going into the next round. But he'll have to try and prove the fact that whilst he may have missed a double win here, he's definitely got the pace to make it 2 from 2 in what is the Temple of Speed. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we've got one more interview to come, and well, he's been waiting a long time, but who's it going to be with? You're about to find out. And so, ladies and gentlemen, our final interviewee joins me now in the interview room, and it is none other than Kim-Andre Bjørklund, who makes his way in for our fourth and final interview. Good evening to you, Kim-Andre, and well, what a day from yourself. We've just spoken to the man who took a win in the sprint and then the runner-up spot in the feature race, but for you, it was the runner-up spot in the sprint race and the win in the feature. Another huge score for yourself.
Yeah, it was a pretty great evening.
Oh, well, a great evening for yourself. I mean, you sound a bit exhausted from it, but I mean, what was the recipe for success here? Because you looked lightning quick.
I'm not sure. This track has always been good to me, so I tried an official race yesterday and it was okay, so it just clicked.
Well, it may have just clicked, and in terms of qualifying, I have to ask, third on the grid, however, we saw the qualifying times incredibly tight, as we mentioned to Emma Ryu at the start of the interviews, second through to 20th was separated by less than a second. Were you surprised to be third as a result?
No and yes. I wasn't a very good lap at the last lap, but I made 2 crucial mistakes at the end of the lap, so I lost about 4/10, I guess, I think, or 3. I'm not sure. I lost around 3 or 4/10, so I could have gotten pole, but it didn't matter at the end, so it's all okay.
Or indeed, you may have missed out on pole, but to be fair, what you missed out on the grid, you made up for in the sprint race straight away. We saw you very quickly fight your way for that second place, although it looked as though Oscar in the end was perhaps just a little bit too quick for you to catch up.
He was quick, and I made 2 big mistakes that could have been race ending in the sprint. I don't know how I saved them, and I probably won't do it again. So next time I probably would be in the wall, but yeah, it went well at the end. So second place in the sprint was really good, and I tend to be good at passing at the start of the race in feature races, so I just try to build on that.
Oh, indeed. I mean, you showed that straight away, making some very quick moves early on as we look back at some of the footage you passing Josh Boot. I have to ask, of course, as you're making these overtakes, I mean, Road Atlanta is not a wide circuit. At a lot of points, it's actually quite narrow for overtakes. But with you seem to be absolutely fearless. You just go for it, and, well, come hell or high water, you make it happen.
I try to make them defend into some crucial corners where you can just accelerate and take them on the exit. It has worked really good for me in the past and worked really good today as well.
I mean, you say that, but Kim, I've got to say to you, 3 wide into turn 1, up the inside of both Aaron Herbert and also Simon Bamber. I mean, that's not just bravery, that's absolute insanity, but it was incredible. I mean, you must have had the biggest grin on your face when you went for that move.
Yeah, I said in my stream as well, double overtake, that was fun.
Well, you definitely had a lot of fun, and after that, it looked as though you were in control of the lead. How were you worried that Oscar would catch you towards the end?
I knew he was fast, and I wasn't sure if I could keep him behind, but he made one mistake in T5, I think. So I got a bit more breathing room again, and I made use of that.
Oh, most certainly. And in making use of that breathing, you were able to bring home another feature race win for yourself. And what it does mean now is going to Monza, you've moved to second in the championship, and you're gradually closing him down. What can we expect from you in Italy?
Italy, Monza is more or less bingo. You never know what happens lap one in those two first chicanes, so I had not big hopes, but we'll try to make it a good one.
Oh, that's absolutely fair. And, well, you'll keep us guessing like everybody will before we get to Monza. But just as we get ready to let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a thank you or a shout out to on the stream?
I would shout out to the league organizers and you for streaming this insanity, and my teammates who are pushing me to always be faster than I have been. So, yep.
Well, thank you, Kim Andre. And indeed, if it has been insanity today, you've made a lot of sense of it all, and we do appreciate it. Thank you for joining me in the interview, and congratulations on another pair of podiums, including a win. We'll see you at Monza, but until then, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from Kim Andre Bjørklund, and well, that was a lot of fun. The way he reacted to a 2-for-1 special into turn number one. I absolutely love the Sim Racing Norway driver. I mean, they're all great drivers up and down this field, to be fair. And they're all a completely great mix of characters. There's no doubt about it. And describing the race there as insanity, well, you could definitely call it that in some respects, but good insanity, I should say, if there is such a good thing. Well, I'm going to say there is, because we got to see the Sim Racing Norway driver today really put the pieces together. Although interesting there, much like Emma Ryu saying about a third lap in qualifying that didn't quite work out, the same for Kim Andre Bjørklund in the fact that in the end, his final lap was 3 to 4 tenths faster somewhere in the region, and he could have taken overall pole. Well, could it have been an even different story? Could we have seen an absolute boxing style fight between himself and Oscar Berntsson for the sprint race win? Well, we didn't in the end. What we did see was the fact that a couple of near misses, he survived them in the sprint to make sure he finished second, but he couldn't close down the winner. As for the feature, well, he deployed one of his key strengths, which is quick overtakes at the start, getting his elbows out as well, and in the end he took the lead and did not look back. And noticing that Berntsson had made that error at turn number 5 with only a couple of laps to go, indeed, those two drivers, they definitely seem to be getting the measure of each other, and it's a good thing as well, because they're your top two now in the Gold Championship, with Oscar Berntsson ahead of Kim Andre Bjørklund, and therefore I think the rivalry is going to go to Monza. But can this man close down his fellow Nordic counterpart? We will have to see. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And you've heard from firstly 2 of our silver stars, and that was none other than firstly ERR by the organisations Emma Ryu with the new sponsorship and new team, and all the new hardware as well. Absolutely fantastic to see her right back at the front of the field, battling hard, albeit feeling a bit gutted, of course, for what happened at the end of the sprint with the fuel exhaustion. But still, it's not about how you start the day, it's about how you finished, and Emma Ryu doing well to do so. Then we heard from Krista Helsoy, who had a similar story in some respects, with a nightmare start to his sprint race, but turning that frown upside down into a third-class finish in the class in what was the feature, a brilliant recovery drive. And then we came to our golden goats here. And as we did see, the greatest of all time, perhaps, is what I'm saying by goat. And well, could Oscar Berntsson become that? He's definitely trying to charge his way towards it for Ice Cold Racing by Maxim Racing after pole position, the win in the sprint, and almost the win in the feature. But he was just pipped to the post by the man we interviewed after him, Kim Andre Bjørklund for Sim Racing Norway, who in the end couldn't quite make it to the front row of qualifying, but he did make it to the front row of the finishing positions of the sprint, and he also brought home that feature race win after that incredible 3-wide overtake into turn number 1. But well done to all 4 of our drivers, their great performances, and a huge thank you to them all for joining me in the interview room. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about Race by Wire, or to get on the grid with us perhaps, well, for all that and more, if you want to become part of the story here, well, definitely make sure you join our official Discord, invite link available on screen. And if you do join, of course, you can get on the grid in this series or any of our other upcoming series. Indeed, we'd love to have you a part of it as we continue to grow our community. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series sponsor, and that is Energise Virtual Solutions. And Energise Virtual Solutions is a software consulting consultancy whose aim is to meet the demands of bespoke product services and development. Where it's a complete new project or consultancy assistance on existing projects, Energise Virtual Solutions will be working alongside you every step of the way. So if you'd like to know more, do head to energisevirtual.com today to find out how they can help you. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, we turn our attentions now to round number 5, and in a week's time, on Wednesday the 28th of January 2026, we make our way to Italy for the Temple of Speed, and the one place where turn 1, lap number 1, sends a shiver down any driver's spine. It is, of course, none other than the Monza Grand Prix circuit, and what will unfold there we'll have to see, because in the Gold Class Championship, Oscar Berntsson has shored up his championship lead and provisionally to 18 points over Kim-Andre Bjørklund. He seems to be asserting some degree of control, but the Sim Racing Norway driver is trying to make sure that the ice-cold racing powered by Max Sim Racing driver is not able to have everything his own way. Meanwhile, in the silver class, well, it's all been shuffled around once again, but the one thing that is definitely certain in the silver class is that Krista Halsey, Glenn Gondoliers, they're the two who are staying at the top, whereas everybody else right now is trying to close the gap as quickly as humanly possible. But who will be on top come the end of the first half of the season? That's what we'll find out in Italy at Monza. But until then, we have been Race by Wire. This has been Season 1 of the Porsche Cup, and I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh. Until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, as always, remember to stay on track. Good night.